agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No. There's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia. These are the missiles that Biden...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. 2 minutes past 6, I'm Mike Graham. It is, of course, a Monday morning, and here we are once again at the home of common sense, wondering what on earth to talk about, because there's hardly anything happened over the weekend. Never mind the Super Bowl, never mind Donald Trump slagging off Taylor Swift, getting huge cheers as he arrived in New Orleans for the final of the NFL, effectively. Never mind the fact that we've got a front-page story on the Daily Telegraph today, which says, chicken nuggets obstruct criminals' deportation. No, it's not an April Fool. Apparently his son doesn't like chicken nuggets that are made anywhere but Britain, so therefore he can't be sent back to his home country of Albania, despite the fact that he's a ghastly, awful, horrible criminal. Marvellous, isn't it? Well, welcome to Britain, ladies and gentlemen, being run currently by a rather denuded cabinet, because we've now had the third, I think, senior member of the government team to have to leave his job. We basically got to the point where yesterday we could scarcely believe our eyes, as in the early hours of the morning or late on Saturday night, a man by the name of Andrew Gwynn, who you might never have heard of, who's a health minister in this government, not a very senior Secretary of State for Health. No, that would be Wes Streeting. This is a guy that works for Wes Streeting. He was sacked after a bunch of what can only be described as vile posts on WhatsApp, in which he declared that he hoped pensioners died, in which he declared that basically he wasn't very keen on Jewish people, a lot of anti-Semitism. He's supposed to have made some kind of crack about Angela Rayner's sex life as well. We can't find that one, so we can't bring that one to you. It turns out this morning there's yet another member of the Labour Party, another MP, who is also part of this WhatsApp group that was exchanging what we might describe as not very funny banter. This guy is Oliver Ryan, 29-year-old MP for Burnley. He was also a leading member of the group, and he's posted more than 2,000 messages. Greater Manchester Police, if you think I'm picking on Keir Starmer and picking on Labour, Greater Manchester Police are now assessing a number of complaints about whether or not to bring criminal charges, believe it or not. So that's all going on. Meanwhile, we've got a story on the front page of the Times which says, packed state schools have no room for private pupils. I wonder why that could be. Is it because loads of people have left private school and tried to put their children into the local state schools because the government put VAT up and therefore prices up? Well, we did tell them this would happen. I mean, how many times do they not listen to what I've told them? Also, my favourite story of the day, there's a council somewhere, I can't remember where, that says don't use the term able-bodied anymore because it might cause offence. So basically, Tom Slater's here with me. I don't want to make any assumptions, Tom. Very good morning to you. But if there's anything wrong with you, apparently, you refer to yourself as non-disabled.
Got you.
Okay?
Yeah.
As I often say to Julie Hartley-Brewer, not all disabilities are visible, to which she always answers, well, yours bloody well are, which is not a very nice thing to say to one of your colleagues, but there we are. It's Monday morning, it's the home of common sense. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. That's the same number you send a WhatsApp to. A voice note, 87222 is the way you get hold of us by text. And, of course, on X and or at talkTV. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. And on top of all of that amazing stuff to talk about, Angela Rayner suddenly appeared yesterday on various television programmes to defend the state of the government. And she didn't do a very good job, I'm afraid.
I don't know if anyone could.
It's quite a difficult
point. You know, even if it was in her gift, it is stacking up, isn't it? One scandal after another, one minister being after shown the door. I mean, we all knew it was going to be bad.
Yeah.
To be this hopeless, I think.
No, I mean, I say it every week now. You know, I don't come in here deliberately looking for a reason to have a go at them. But every single weekend now, I mean, last weekend it was the voice coach, right? So that story's barely moved away from the top of the line of the agenda. And now we've got this guy, hideous character by the name of Andrew Gwynn, who seems a real nasty piece of work and appears to have been a nasty piece of work for quite a long time. I saw footage of him over the weekend, you know, harassing Boris Johnson in the middle of an interview, sort of pushing him around. And, you know, he's clearly said some controversial things in the past, and he's not a very nice man. And as people were saying yesterday, talking about this story, and for those of you who don't know about it, he's basically written a load of WhatsApp messages, some of them to constituents, where he's made it very clear that he has no time for constituents at all, particularly ones who didn't vote for him. In one case, he slags off a pensioner who's moaning about the bin collections, basically saying, I hope you die before the next time there's an election. I mean, just really horrible, ghastly stuff that you shouldn't even be thinking, never mind saying.
I mean, it is unpleasant. I mean, I always think that this should almost be a kind of allowance made for people when they're making comments in private, just because even though it could be really unpleasant when people don't expect it to be up for public discussion. The problem with the Labour Party is because they've been running around trying to get people sacked from government or otherwise for making often their own off-colour comments in private. It's very difficult for them to do anything else than come down on these people like a ton of bricks.
Right. And listen, I'm with you. I mean, I'm not sure that whatever awful, ghastly, terrible stuff this guy has said, that it merits a police investigation into hate speech. I'm not necessarily one for all of that. I just find it very funny, apart from anything else, because they're now being hoisted literally with their own petard.
Yeah, because they clutch their pearls over everything.
They set up the police, didn't they, to start going after people for hate crime under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. And so now, look where we are. You're all getting done for hate crime.
No, and they go around pretending that it's absolutely shocking and appalling whenever anyone kind of oversteps the line where speech is concerned. So for them to now be hit by this, it just makes it even more precious for them. They can't. They've got no leg to stand on to try and push back.
Well, let's have a look at some of the things Angela Rayner said yesterday, because this is all on Laura Kuenssberg's show. So she's Deputy Prime Minister, right? Second in command, supposedly, although everybody knows that's not really true. But the book that came out the weekend before, I suppose last, which was this book called Get In, sort of painted her as a bit of a Machiavellian figure. I see her in a slightly different light now, because, you know, rather than this sort of bumbling, you know, grandmother at 34 type woman who came all the way up through the trade union movement, she comes across as somebody who is incredibly powerful inside of Starmer's government, not least because he tried to fire her a while ago and he couldn't do it, and she ended up having more jobs.
No, exactly. I mean, she's managed to sort of outfox him many times. There was, as you say, that attempt to demote her after the Hartlepool by-election, trying to make her kind of carry the can for it, and then she ended up with more job titles rather than fewer.
Yeah, only Labour could manage that.
Exactly.
But here she is answering the question as to why Keir Starmer is doing such a terrible job, effectively. Have a look.
He's his own worst critic.
He would be, yeah, absolutely.
But a new book reports that you said he couldn't run a bath. Did you say that?
Well, I'm not, you know, there's a lot of things that were said in that book that I don't recognise, to be honest.
So did you not say that?
And it's tittle tattle, so I don't recognise what was said in that book.
But that's not tittle tattle. Well, that's what the woman who's now the Deputy Prime Minister is reported to have said about the now Prime Minister.
Sure, and there was lots of other things that people have said about me or anyone else, and no, I don't recognise ever saying that to anybody. But we all have frustrations when we're at work sometimes, and I'm sure people have been frustrated with me at work sometimes.
I would say that means she said Keir Starmer couldn't run a bath, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. That's one of those sort of non-denial, you know.
I don't recognise it. I mean, it's one of those ways of saying I don't quite remember, or maybe, you know, some people, sometimes things are said.
I might have phrased it slightly differently.
Might have said he can't, you know, yeah, exactly. But there's clearly no love lost between the two of them.
Not in the slightest. And also, you know, no one is surprised by a lot of these quotes tumbling out of this Get-In book.
Yeah.
You know, people saying that, you know, Keir Starmer thinks he's driving the train, but really sat in front of the DLR.
That's brilliant.
All of this is incredibly damning. And these are the people who are working closest with him. Some people like Angela Rayner who have stuck with him as well. The fact that no one feels like he's actually in charge of this, and he's also just making a horrible go of it.
The other part of the book, which I found interesting, is it's more or less saying that before the election there was a massive bun fight going on between Morgan McSweeney and Angela Rayner, not Angela Rayner, Sue Gray, right, as to who was actually in charge of the party. Once they got into Downing Street, Sue Gray kind of elbowed him out of the way and was like, you know, now I'm running everything. But at no time does it say Keir Starmer's actually running it. You know, somewhere between the two of those. Eventually McSweeney wins, she gets fired, and you know, and now here we are getting rid of number 4, because after Sue Gray it was Louise Haigh, the Transport Secretary. Then it was Tulip Siddiq, who apparently is still being sought for questioning by the Bangladeshi authorities on corruption. And now it's this guy, Andrew Gwynn. And according to the Mail this morning, the second Labour MP unmasked in the WhatsApp group, a guy called Oliver Ryan. Presumably he'll have to be fired as well, won't he?
Well, it seems like they've set the precedent now. I think they've just sort of suspended him whilst they investigate, which is the way that they'll set it up. But he's clearly got no grip on events and his own party. No. And therefore it just becomes one scandal after another, and also kind of factional infighting for who is steering what it is that's going on. So it's just it's one thing for people to disagree with what you're doing. It's another one for people to think you're completely hopeless. And he's kind of in the latter.
And there's no sense of anyone kind of coordinating all of it in one place and going, look, this is our policy. I mean, we'll talk later, I'm sure, about their new migration policy, which appears to be sort of trying to ape in some way what Reform want to do. They've even put out a series of adverts which have been done in Reform style. I presume so that people think that, you know, it's Labour, but it's not really Labour. It's actually, you know, a right-wing party that's got the same blue colour as Reform. I mean, it's very weird. But here's another one for you, because one of the other things she was questioned about was, of course, the housing targets, because, you know, they've got targets, but they're not reaching them. But here she comes out with the magic words. Wait to see.
For me, it's common sense. We were elected for this because people can see it. Every one of your viewers today will know somebody in their family that actually desperately needs a council house or desperately wants to get on the housing ladder.
Yeah, but I can't get on the housing ladder because Angela Rayner's bought up all the houses in the street. So unfortunately, but I mean, I don't mind Donald Trump nicking the phrase common sense, but I'm not sure I want Angela Rayner nicking it. You know, I mean, we are the home of common sense, the world headquarters of it. Now Labour are trying to cash in.
I know, exactly. I mean, maybe it should be taken as a compliment. The fact that the dial has shifted so far in the favour of common sense and what most people actually want. Yes. But the change in language is interesting, isn't it? Like what Keir Starmer has said on occasion about migration, talking about the open borders experiment, even talking about migration in a much more kind of robust way generally. You know, the question is this just going to be talk? And I think most people suspect it will be. We shall see.
One of the other things that came out in the book, of course, is that Angela Rayner got herself involved in, after the death of the Queen, got involved in whether or not Prince Andrew should be part of the succession plan, i.e. does he fill in at some point for the monarch in the meantime if anything goes wrong. And there was rather a controversial period in which she supposedly used the word nonce. And I say it once again, I mean, people say that it's a word that we shouldn't say, but she says it quite regularly, and so does Laura Kurzweil. She works for the BBC, so I don't see why I can't say it. Have a look at this.
Did you refer to a member of the royal family as something I'm not sure we're allowed to say on a Sunday morning, but in case we can bleep it out, did you suggest...
Again, I'm not making any comments about what said or not said in
did you
somebody...
deny that you called a member of the royal family a nonce?
Said in a book. I'm not making any comment on what somebody suggests was said in a book, or actually the private conversations that I did have during the passage of the bill.
So I guess she also called Prince Andrew a nonce then, by the sounds of it.
Again, there wasn't much of a denial. There's something.
It's not even a non-denial denial. She's not even saying, I don't remember if I said it. She's just like saying, I'm not going to comment.
I think she'd also be kind of quite happy for this story to be out there, though. It's probably one of the rare points in which people feel much more on Angela Rayner's side, which is inveighing against Prince Andrew in quite fruity language. Who couldn't be, more behind.
I don't think anyone's going to argue on his behalf, are they? Saying, I wish you hadn't said that about him.
How dare they ruin the good name?
Alison from Burnley says this, just to kick things off. Oliver Ryan is my MP. I had to contact him recently about an issue. He replied in a prompt manner, but didn't have a clue which government department he needed to contact. I had to correct him and got a terse reply. It didn't give me much hope.
Well, it sounds like he's quite quick on the WhatsApp. He's quite quick on the messages. Whether or not what he's saying
he's right on
correct.
top of his social media accounts.
Exactly. That much can be said about him.
It's a short career he's had as a Labour MP. Well done, Oliver. He's only been in 6 or 7 months, and now he's going to get fired. Well done, mate. Tremendous work. Coming up after the little break here at 6:15, we're going to talk about the Albanian who's not allowed to be deported, according to the front page of the Daily Telegraph, because his son, apparently, who's 10, is rather keen on chicken nuggets. And apparently you can't get very nice chicken nuggets in Albania. I'm not sure I believe that for a second. Apparently it would be unduly harsh for him to be forced to move to Albania with his father, owing to his sensitivity around food. I mean, once you start talking to 10-year-olds about sensitivities around food, like, I don't like vegetables, I'm not going to eat those carrots. I mean, you're already going down the wrong road, in my view, but we'll come back to this. This is, of course, all about a right to family life under the European Convention on Human Rights. Wouldn't you know it? This, of course, is the home of common sense. If only the country was the home of common sense. It's moving in that direction, perhaps. This is Talk.
I will sign a series of historic executive orders. We will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars. I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 20 minutes past 6. Tom Slater's here from Spikes Online. I'm Mike Graham. We've got plenty to talk about. I haven't even mentioned Harry and Meghan yet. They're on the front pages this morning as well. Apparently, over the weekend, Donald Trump revealed that he wasn't going to deport Harry because he's got enough problems with his wife. Harry wasn't too happy about that. They've gone off to prove themselves to be absolute virtue signalling geniuses by kicking off the old Invictus Games up in Vancouver. We'll bring you some on that a little bit later on. I think Kinsey Schofield's going to join us. Let's get a voice note though from James. Tim.
Morning, Mike. Tim here from Hampshire. Tell me, what do we have to do to get rid of this Labour government, or specifically get rid of Starmer? Every day there seems to be more and more. It's one disaster after another. I've never known a government like it. What do we have to do to get rid of him? Is there nothing we can do to trigger a general election? This country's going to the dogs. Keep up the good show, Mike.
Tim, thank you very much indeed. I think there must be something we can do. You might remember I've been alluding to this really since about the middle of July. About 2 weeks into this government, I was saying there's something wrong, there's something smelly, there's something really very odd about the whole Starmer arrangement, whether it be his personal life, whether it be his political life, whether it be the way that he comports himself. There's just something very wrong about him as Prime Minister of this country. And so it has proved. And so with every single week, as we've been saying, something else happens. I mean, I agree with Tim, I don't think I've ever remembered a terrible government which has just done one misstep after another. Where everything they do, everything they touch just turns to something other than gold.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's like the reverse Midas, isn't he?
Yeah.
But it's fascinating how I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that this is a man and a government that doesn't really know what it's for. It knew what it was against. And so we've got to get the Tories out. There's horrible people, and they've ruined the country.
Yes.
But beyond that, he's got no idea. And so as a consequence of that, you kind of rattle from one scandal to another. There's no real clear sense of direction. It's not obvious what you're asking the country to back you in doing, so you just...
I mean, Dominic Cummings talks about Boris Johnson being this sort of out-of-control shopping trolley that was kind of rattling its way around the supermarket. He's in a sort of runaway car, going down a one-way street the wrong way, crashing into all the parked cars. That's what it seems like.
Completely. And the comparison is apt as far as that same sense of, like, not how much damage you can do if you don't really know what you're doing or why you're doing it. Keir Starmer's a good example of that.
Absolutely. And I mean, even this morning, the picture on the front page of the Times and the Telegraph, I'll just hold the Times one up if you can see it. It's Keir Starmer wearing an England shirt, having just missed yet another opportunity, this time on the football pitch. But, you know, again, he's caption maker's heaven, isn't he?
Yeah.
Another missed target, it says on the front page of the Sun. So Keir Starmer shows his disappointment after a missed chance during a social game of football. Good to know that he's got time to play football, and he hasn't disappeared off anywhere recently.
Also, you think his advisors would be around, like, please don't go and play this, because I think he missed a penalty as well. So
did he?
And so the fact that, of course, there's going to be camera crews everywhere. Of course, like, if you slip up like that, it's going to be on the front page of every newspaper. They must have been tearing their hair out, saying, I know you like a game of five-a-side, kid, but maybe not now.
Or maybe play indoors where you can't maybe be photographed unless we're letting people in that we know.
Exactly, like a top-secret game.
But that's another story. We also learned at the weekend, did we not, that he tried to put pressure on one of his aides to call the BBC to stop them from publishing a story which said that Sue Gray was making more money than him. Because the load was made of this story at the time, because she was asked if she could get, like, literally a penny less than the Prime Minister, it might be a slightly better look. She, of course, using her characteristic blunderbuss approach to politics, said, no, I definitely want more money than him. And then it became a story. But Starmer tried to silence it. So his immediate instinct on anything is to go, oh, don't tell anyone that, and let's try and keep it a secret. Well, what sort of Prime Minister is that?
And to throw the weight around, because this sort of thing tends to happen when you've got the government kind of put a lot of pressure on the BBC over a story, if there's, like, national security implications or something like that. And even so, the BBC has still got enough independence to say no. But at the same time, this was just an embarrassing piece of, kind of Westminster gossip. It wasn't something that you would throw all your weight into trying to stop. It's just
and also for it to come out as well proves how little respect anybody's got for him. Because whoever he told to do it has now told the people that wrote the book. I mean, you know, the difference, you might not like Alistair Campbell, but he would actually ring up the BBC on behalf of the government and say, what the F do you think you're doing? You haven't got that as page as a top story, blah, blah, blah. He was a pretty odious character when he did it, and he threatened all kinds of things, but at least he actually did it fairly openly, and everybody expected the call. You know, it wasn't wasn't unusual. But let's talk about this Albanian, right, which is unbelievable. No doubt he's probably not named because it's probably against his human rights to be named. Basically, an Albanian criminal allowed to stay in Britain partly because his son will not eat foreign chicken nuggets. This was his distaste for the type of chicken nuggets that are available abroad. I mean, are we really not having any kind of sense of propriety here and sense of perspective? I mean, I wonder who these judges are. How do they take account of some lawyer who says, I believe, my lord, in other countries the chicken nuggets are not of such high quality as the ones in this country, therefore I must argue that for the boy to be made to eat them would be completely untenable and against his human rights. I mean, do me a favour.
You're going to have like an expert witness.
How does he feel about
nuggets.
the ketchup?
Yeah.
You know.
It's like you or I made this story up. Like, it's so perfect. You know, we've had the Afghan flasher who couldn't be sent back to Afghanistan because they were worried that his lifestyle choices would mean that he would get a frosty reception.
Right.
It's one thing like this after another, but chicken nuggets is definitely...
I think this is taking the biscuit, if you'll pardon the expression, as they call them that in the southern part of the United States. My favourite story of people who couldn't be deported, there was a Romanian guy who worked in a car wash, apparently, somewhere up in East Anglia, and he couldn't be sent home because he feared that he would be murdered by his wife's family. And when they said, why does he fear he's going to be murdered by his wife's family, it was because he'd murdered his wife. And there might be repercussions back in Romania. So he's now happily working, washing your car up in sort of outside of Norwich somewhere.
Just beggars
I mean, what's going on?
Like, and it does feel like it's a joke now. Like, everyone knows it's a joke. You've got serious criminals who know that they can exploit this absurd setup in order to stay in the country. And these are cases that, you know, beyond your complete lunatic, no one would possibly defend. You know, this guy, he claimed asylum, this Albanian story, the chicken nugget parent, you know, he claimed asylum under false pretences, pretended to be from a different country. He was caught with £250,000 in cash, which was clearly to the proceeds of organised crime.
Drug money.
This is not, you know, a kind of edge case or one in which, you know, anyone with a modicum of common sense, as you would say, would have any trouble with, and yet because of this absurd human rights setup, which has nothing to do with human rights as anyone would understand it, and everything to do with just lawfare. He's allowed to stay. It's ridiculous. And
apparently this case is revealed in court documents among a record 34,169 outstanding asylum appeals. That's not just cases. These are 34,000 plus appeals, which is a fivefold increase in 2 years from the 6,300 appeals outstanding at the same point, literally in 2022. I mean, so in 2 and a bit years, they've gone up by 5 times. It's 500%.
The inability to get a grip on this, and also for anyone to talk about it seriously, like people will start talking, you know, just looking into middle distance, talking about human rights and waxing lyrical about Winston Churchill. Do we really think this gentleman is what they had in mind when they drew up?
It's really not, is it?
The whole human rights architecture.
And neither was chicken nuggets and the right to eat them. I mean, there is no right. I'm sorry, I've got bad news for you guys. There is no right to eat chicken nuggets made in a particular country as opposed to the ones made anywhere else.
They should put that. They should just enshrine it. You've got right to a family life, right to a chicken nugget.
Right to a chicken nugget made in Britain.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
Which it probably isn't anyway. It's probably made in China or something, from not even a chicken. Also, this is coming at a time when the Labour government is trying to look as if they're getting tough. I think today the migrants bill is going to be discussed. This is the new bill that's going to give more powers, supposedly, to Border Force, to police and everything else, to actually check people's phones, which I can't believe they couldn't do before, to actually sort of search them, to go through their belongings when they land. So presumably until this moment, none of that was going on.
No, I mean, that's one thing where, even though there's been concerns raised about the way in which Labour want to soften up some of the pre-existing laws left on the books, the fact that some of the things they're talking about, people are surprised weren't the case already, that it wasn't actually that easy to, you know, seize bank accounts or to check devices and so on. I mean, they do have a kind of story to tell. They, you know, deportations are supposedly up by about a quarter. There's, it's a real indictment of the last government that there's various things that they have been able to do, even within the quite limited frame that they've set themselves. But no one's listening. No one believes them. And that's one of the striking things, even if they are genuinely making some progress on this front. Trust is broken down so sufficiently that they can't even take credit for some of these things.
See, this is another one of these Albanian cases. We've got his name actually here. Clevis Disha, 39, came here illegally in February 2001 as a 15-year-old unaccompanied child. And he came here, and I know, having spoken to an awful lot of Border Force people during and after the Balkans War, a lot of people came here saying that they were ethnically cleansed from Kosovo because they were Kosovan Albanians. In fact, they weren't. They were Albanians. But nobody was clever enough to understand the dialect difference in the way that they spoke. So this guy claimed to be from the former Yugoslavia, and it turns out, of course, he wasn't. His asylum claim was rejected, but he secured UK citizenship in 2007, which again is not supposed to happen. And so he was then given a leave to remain, and then given indefinite leave to remain. He met his partner, another Albanian who had gained UK citizenship in 2006, with whom he had 2 daughters and a son. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's literally like open season on Britain.
And it's a reminder that how long this has been going on for.
Yeah.
Well, it's obviously hit a particular crisis point, post-migrant crisis in 2015 and all the rest of it. But this is an obvious issue that someone needed to get a grip on. In a weird sort of way, Labour would be in a better position to get a grip on it than the Tories, because they can get away with some of the measures that might be required in a way that maybe a Tory government couldn't. Because the BBC screaming.
Well, guess why?
murder.
Because Labour used to attack them for it and say that it was a waste of time and it was inhuman, and they would attack people like Suella Braverman for talking and using language like out of the 1930s and all the rest of it. You know, and the only thing they've done is cancelled the Rwandan plan, which has meant even more people coming in. Yeah, I mean, they do have some sort of metrics that they can point to. But unless you sort out that issue of kind of the pull factors and the incentives, it's always going to be a bit of a losing game. No, I mean, it says in The Sun, there's a page on page 13 piece here, border staff have nicked nearly 4,000 migrants working illegally in places like nail bars, car washes and takeaways. But, of course, that's all very well. Arresting them is the easy bit. It's getting rid of them. That's the hard bit. It doesn't say, there's nowhere in Home Office figures does it say whether any of them have been deported, because they won't have been. You know,
and there's a whole appeal
because they don't
process.
like the chicken nuggets.
No, exactly.
I mean, just ridiculous.
The chicken nugget defence is
unbelievable.
Run.
Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. It's James from Blackburn. What a great weekend again. Old Labour HQ, there was a bit of a bustle when they found out that, nope, MPs haven't been battering the constituents. No, they've just been caught wishing that they were dead instead. How charming, how absolutely charming they are. And then they wheeled out Angela. I do not recognise the statements of that book. I'm not going to comment. I do not recognise the statement of that book. I don't recognise it, which means you said it. Maybe Keir can't run a bath. Maybe he's got a heat pump and he's no hot water. I don't know, but it's going to be another good week, Mike.
It's hard to believe, James. Thank you very much indeed, as ever. Lisa says, what's going on with Angela Rayner's fringe? It's crooked. Should we have another look? Let's have a look at her answering the question about Prince Andrew again and check the fringe. That doesn't look like the right clip. She's walking.
For me, it's common sense. We were elected for this because people can see it. Every one of your viewers today will know somebody in their family that actually desperately needs a council house or desperately wants to get on the housing ladder.
It is a bit crooked, isn't it? Maybe we should get a still and just examine it close up. It looks as if it goes kind of wonky from one side. You know, it's not like the same length.
Yeah, it might have been a particular choice. Just maybe something a bit more diagonal. You know.
Just to sort of look a bit more kind of retro.
Yeah.
Something from the 70s.
This is not the sort of analysis you'd expect at this time in the morning.
It's not really, but this is why people love the show.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get here. It's been suggested she might be leading it to the right. Coming up, we'll talk Donald Trump. He was at the Super Bowl last night, which was won by the Philadelphia Eagles, for those of you who wish to know the result, which, of course, is not the team that Taylor Swift supports. There was a bit of a row between her and Trump, apparently, but we'll come to that. Also, Prince, what's his name again? Oh, Hazza. Or is it Ginge? Or is it Tim Nice But Dim? Apparently, Spotify called him Tim Nice But Dim, the Harry Enfield character, because he is dim, isn't he? Don't tell me what they called her, but Kinsey Schofield's coming up. She'll be absolutely, I would imagine, ripped up by this, emotionally, absolutely traumatised. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:36. I'm Mike Graham. Tom Slater is here. We've got lots and lots to talk about this morning. We've also got to refer to what happened over on the other side of the Atlantic. Kinsey Schofield is here with us. Kinsey, a very, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Thanks, Mike. My team won, so it is a good morning.
You were going for the Philadelphia Eagles. Well done to you. Let's have a look, actually, quickly at Donald Trump's entrance to the Super Bowl, because I believe, this is amazing to me, apparently he's the first sitting president to actually attend the Super Bowl. Which I read. There's a lot of cheering. An awful lot of cheering. So it was a bit of an interesting one, this, because Donald Trump went there supposedly supporting the Kansas City Chiefs because he supposedly didn't like the Eagles, as last time they won the Super Bowl and he was president, they didn't come to the White House to pick up their award. And then he kind of switched sides halfway through and then left early.
Yeah, I imagine that they might actually visit this time around because the attitude towards Donald Trump is much different during this second term.
Yes.
Tiger Woods was hanging out with him hours before he jumped on a plane to come to the Super Bowl. Right. Celebrities and bigger personalities aren't as hesitant to be seen with him this time around.
Right. Isn't that interesting? And I should point out to people who don't realise that you are wearing those Philadelphia Eagles colours this morning, so I should give you a little nod to that. Let's talk about the main event, never mind the Super Bowl. It's, of course, the Invictus Games. And Harry and Meghan. What a picture that was. The Daily Mail have used it this morning. I tweeted it out yesterday. Meghan and Harry both looking up into the sort of the screen above them. She's holding onto his arm for grim life, and he just looks completely and utterly disappointed with his life.
Can I just tell you that my favorite video is the video of Meghan moving a woman, one of the athletes from Team Canada, moving her wheelchair without asking permission. The woman's mid-conversation, and she stops because she's startled that somebody has grabbed her and is relocating her, and it's Meghan just taking it upon herself to adjust this woman for a photo. I have to tell you that so far is my favorite video from Invictus.
It is incredible. She made a little speech, of course, which we're hoping to play later on, in which she said, that Harry was so embedded with this amazing Invictus Games thing that he had invented, that, he loved it more than anything else, and that she said, the great thing is that we're all part of one big family. You're my family and you're his family. And all I could think of was, well, she's obviously trying to say that he doesn't have a family because they're all horrible racists, they all live in England.
Or, if I'm your family, then I guess the countdown is on because you talk to no one from your family. So I better just bask in the glow of your temporary, kindness.
There is that problem. My other favourite story of the weekend was the Spotify one, where it turns out that the people who worked at Spotify had more nicknames for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex than anybody ever knew, including Ginge and Whinge, the Kardashians of Windsor. They called him Tim Nice But Dim, and they called her Eva, named after, I think, one of the, was it Joan Crawford, from the 1990 camp classic Queen Bee.
Yeah, I mean, those are actually pretty tame compared to what I hear on the streets of Los Angeles. So I think that they should encourage those versus what people say about them over here, especially after their little tour of the fire damage and devastation. So
and the Billie Eilish business, right?
Oh my gosh. Whenever I do a good deed, I like to name drop 30,000 people that don't even like the post or acknowledge that I'm giving them a shout out.
Absolutely right. And also, after Donald Trump said at the weekend that he wasn't going to deport him because he's got enough problems with his wife, which was classic Trump, he apparently decided in his speech to say that basically he didn't think there was much moral leadership in the world, which everybody thought was a bit of a swipe at Trump. But a pretty rich of old Prince Harry, a man that used to parade around naked with strippers in Las Vegas, to talk about moral leadership, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I love to take my advice about moral leadership from people that I've literally seen in Nazi costumes. Just kidding. No, I mean, here, sit this one out, Prince Harry.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to be up there, presumably parading it. Did I also read a piece that they were staying in the same hotel presidential suite as a president actually stayed in?
100%. That is who these two think they are. They are entitled. They are wildly more impressed with themselves than anyone else is.
Right. I also saw a bit of a video clip of them on the back of a golf cart going through underneath the sort of the stadium in Vancouver where the Invictus Games was going on. And as somebody said, you hardly see any footage whatsoever of the actual games. All we just see is footage of Harry and Meghan. And they're in the back of this golf cart like a Pope-mobile, sort of waving at the crowds who had been ordered to stand along the route.
Well, that's what, you know, I'm seeing these videos and everybody's like, oh, they love him. They love him about Prince Harry. He is not a martyr. He's supposed to just be the organizer and the ambassador. He's not Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And I don't believe
he wasn't injured in combat like some of them were.
Exactly. Yeah, he's just supposed to be this, you know, the person that uplifts these other people. To see some of the commentary around how people are worshiping him, it's like that's not the message you want to send. But at least they've sort of taken a break from the Meghan Markle fashion show, which was the last Invictus Games.
And when are we going to see the Love Meghan Netflix documentary show?
Oh, less than a month away, March 4th. Get your barf bag. We'll have to recap that because I'm hearing that it's really interesting. It's all about how she's a super friend, the best friend ever, and a great host.
Right.
I never hear about Meghan Markle throwing parties. I hear about her crashing them.
Yes, exactly right. Just before I let you go, let me play you a little clip from Angela Rayner. She, of course, is our beloved Deputy Prime Minister with a crooked fringe. And she was asked, unbelievably, on the BBC, I don't know where the standards have gone on the BBC, but they actually asked her if she called Prince Andrew a nonce. Check this out.
Did you refer to a member of the royal family as something I'm not sure we're allowed to say on a Sunday morning, but in case we can bleep it out, did you suggest...
Again, I'm not making any comments about what said or not said in
did you
somebody
deny that you called a member of the royal family a nonce?
Said in a book. I'm not making any comment on what somebody suggests was said in a book, or actually the private conversations that I did have during the passage of the bill.
Yeah, that'll be a yes then, I think, Kinsey.
Yeah, I think I like the distraction with the crooked bangs. Nothing says don't listen to what I'm saying, just stare at my forehead like crooked bangs.
Very true. Brilliant. Good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. You can get some sleep now. Kinsey Schofield live from California. It is remarkable, isn't it, that we've got now a kind of completely weird world where you've got the Deputy Prime Minister of Great Britain being asked a question like that by the BBC's flagship Sunday morning programme. Meanwhile, former member of the royal family is over in America basically telling everyone he doesn't have a family. And he's now the head sort of man that fronts up the Invictus Games, and his wife is constantly whining and whinging despite the fact that they've got hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. I mean, I don't know where the world has gone wrong.
I mean, we've often referred to the royal family becoming a bit like a soap opera, but this is almost like literally so. Like it's just one plot twist after another, one improbable character entering after another. It's all, you know, it's just all become very unseemly.
It's mad, isn't it? Just completely mad. Dave in Bristol says this, possibly, I know it's only coming up to 6:45, but definitely the text of the day so far. He said, morning Mike, missing penalties is obviously an essential attribute for the office of Prime Minister. Apart from the one on the football field, he has missed penalties in Durham for the beer and pizza, a COVID rule breaking, and the speech therapy session COVID rule breaking in London.
Yeah.
Very well said. Dave, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, we haven't even gone back with because that story's still running around, because people are now asking the question quite legitimately, as we asked it actually earlier last week. Who paid for the voice coaching lesson? Was it the public purse that was paying for it? Because it turns out he's been having these voice coaching lessons for years.
And you can tell the difference. I mean, you know? Those dulcet tones that you suddenly
I feel like I'm living in some parallel universe, fixing the foundations. There you go. And let's get a voice note from Phil on the chicken nuggets.
Hi, Mike. It's Phil in Nottingham here. Loving the show, matey, as always. Great start to a Monday. Just ringing up about the chicken nuggets story. Frightening thing is, Mike, is that I'm not surprised by this sort of thing anymore. There was a point where you used to tell these stories and I used to feel myself with my hackles going up and getting angry about the stupidity and the absurdity of it all. And I've now got to the point where I hear a story like this and I'm not surprised anymore. And that in itself is just pathetic.
It is. It is. You're absolutely right. Nobody's surprised. And once again, if for those of you just tuning in, an Albanian criminal cannot be deported because his son doesn't like chicken nuggets that are not made in England. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert on chicken nuggets. Maybe some of you could tell me. Are chicken nuggets better here than anywhere else in the world, particularly Albania? 6:46, Tom Slater's here. Coming up, we'll say why you can no longer call anybody able-bodied anymore. And also, there's yet another weird story about how the government is failing companies and businesses because of tax. This is Talk.
Trump knows how to bring that message out to the people and make it a global edict. No, we will not state sanction, people bashing women up. Like we saw in the Olympics just a couple of months ago. And, different other horrible stories like Leah Thomas, who was constantly taking funding that was meant for women in the United States. I am so glad that Trump has stepped up and actually become the ultra-feminist. It wasn't on my bingo card for 2025.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 10 minutes to 7. There's a big farmers' protest going on this morning. We'll come to that coming up in the next hour. We'll bring you all sorts of developments there because there's a big march on Parliament. They're stopping off at a farm on the way into London, I believe, early this morning. So we'll bring you all of that. Nigel Farage is involved in it, as are many, many other people from the farming community, of course. 0344 499 1000. With Tom Slater is here. Got to do this story here. The headline in the Daily Mail, don't say able-bodied, it's harmful. And this is now advice featured in Visit Britain's new Inclusive Welcome Guide, which tells staff to avoid negative language that perpetuates harmful stereotypes. So when talking to people who are visiting this country, if they look like there's something wrong with them, you call them non-disabled. What? I mean, what?
Well, I don't understand. It's like able-bodied was the politically correct term of 10 years ago, 5 minutes ago, whatever it was.
Right. Also, I thought disabled had been changed to differently abled.
Yeah,
Remember
disabled.
they did that?
I mean, even disabled was an attempt to get over kind of the slightly more unpleasant words that might have previously been applied to people in a wheelchair or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's who is asking for this?
Right.
Is it the disabled, the non-disabled, the differently abled?
Right.
Is it just that someone's been given this job to draw up this list and so has to invent a fence where it doesn't actually
Well, it's
exist?
all part of this madness of DEI, isn't it? You know, diversity, equity and inclusion. Tourism Board's new guidelines say avoid using language that suggests having access requirements is a negative thing and encourages pity, such as suffers from, is a victim of, handicapped, invalid, crippled by or wheelchair bound. So what do you call a disabled toilet now?
Exactly, the non-disabled toilet. I mean, there's there's various different options. Also, because of the fact that I imagine if most disabled people, their pressing concern is the fact that it's still quite difficult to get around, that there's certain places which aren't always accessible. How their non-disabled fellow citizens are being discussed is probably way down their series of concerns.
There's another category apparently you've got to be careful about, those with dwarfism. Apparently they should be referred to as someone with restricted growth or short stature.
It's a bit of a mouthful.
It's a bit of a mouthful. Also, why is Visit Britain, why has it got a section on dwarfism? I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm nothing against people with dwarfism, but why would they need a special, referral for people with dwarfism?
Like, there's been a lot of public clamour amongst the dwarf
don't go to
communities.
Stonehenge, if you're a dwarf. What? I mean, why would you even mention it?
And if so, how should one address? I mean, the amount of paranoia and control freakery that goes into how you should just address various different members of the public. I mean, if anything, it's encouraging staff members at, Visit Britain or whatever to become so obsessed with how they engage with people to the point where it is actually...
Well, we had it last week with the trains, didn't we? Don't call people passengers anymore, in case it's offensive. Huh? All right, then. The other one that I think that happened over the weekend, which is actually quite significant, but it shows how literally craven these big companies are. Accenture, massive big company, employs something like 799,000 people around the world. They've got a lot of COVID work, actually, doing, governmental work. I think they were probably working for the British government. They were certainly working for the US government. And they're a big sort of consultancy firm, basically. And they go in and sort of sort out whatever problem you think you might have for a vast amount of money. But they basically scrapped their global diversity and inclusion goals after what they call an evaluation of the US political landscape. And what they've said they're going to do as of immediate, they're going to start sunsetting the diversity goals set in 2017, as well as career development programs for people of specific demographic groups. So they didn't believe in it themselves. It turns out that just because Donald Trump's now in and they're worried they might lose a few government contracts, they're just ditching it all. So if you're coming from a diverse background or you're coming from some, disabled area, you can get lost. We don't want you now because Donald Trump doesn't fancy it.
And that is the thing, is that it's just how cynical it was to begin with. I mean, did anyone really believe that these huge corporations cared passionately about all of these social
Well, they made it look as
causes?
if they did, didn't they? Because they were deliberately going down that route and deliberately hiring people on the basis of where they came from.
And I'm sure there was a bit of it where, if you're a head of a big corporation, you often take a lot of flack. You kind of want to pretend that your main interest isn't in, actually making profits. It's in pursuing some sort of vaunted social goal. But the speed with which it's unravelled is really, really fascinating. And it just shows how cynical it was.
Because Wall Street has completely gone that way as well. All the banking companies that did it. I wonder if Coots will do it here, because all the other banks appear to be just writing it all off and going, never mind all that stuff.
There'll be offering accounts to every top reform.
Exactly right. If you're a reform voter, come and join us. I mean, apparently Labour have been accused of pretending to be reform over these Facebook ads that they've got. I think we can see. Can we show one? Show a still, anyway, of it. This is look at that. I mean, they're using the same colours as reform. Labour hits 5-year high in migrant removal, so it looks as though it's an endorsement by the way, from Nigel Farage, isn't it?
The mark of desperation about all this. But they finally realised that reform are not just a problem for the Conservative Party, they're a problem for the Labour Party. In the vast majority of seats in which reform came second at the election, they're all Labour.
Yeah.
They're in those red wall Brexit seats.
And it's a mistake to think that all the people joining reform, which is now 200,000 strong, are actually Tories. They're not. Many of them voted Labour in the last election. So, you know, the writing is on the wall. Another one that you can't scarcely really believe this morning, and I'm sorry about this, I know it's only Monday, so I'm loading you down with all these ludicrous stories. This one here, the Church of England, right, I don't know why they're bothering here, has banned non-alcoholic booze for communion, and also you can't have any gluten-free bread either to make the host. Now, forgive me, because I come from the Catholic side of the bed, as it were, and as far as I knew, there was a transmogrification into the body and blood of Jesus Christ. Now, I don't want to upset any Christians here, but, you know, basically, I don't think it matters if it's wine or bread, does it? Because it's meant to be something completely different that you take into your body because it's a miracle.
I mean, without wanting to get into the kind of theology of it, I suppose, the practice, but on which I'm on not as stable ground, but it is funny, as if someone's kind of coming into church.
It's a miracle. What difference does it make? What's in the glass?
If it's gluten-free, right? If it's alcoholic, you're right. I mean, we are talking about at the end of the day.
I mean, you're saying you couldn't do the miracle of the 5 gluten-free loaves and the fishes which were vegan.
Just doesn't work.
Doesn't really.
Just doesn't work.
Well, surely you could have a miracle just with that as well, couldn't you?
Yeah. You know, I mean, surely the possibilities are limitless if you're talking about divine power.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Surely, if the Lord Jesus Christ can literally transmogrify wine and bread, he can do it to non-alcoholic wine and gluten-free bread, can't he?
Well, not according to various people in the Church of England who were very upset by this.
I'm sorry for not taking this story too seriously. Finally, I suppose, or not necessarily finally, but it's coming up at the end of the week, the dreaded day, Valentine's Day, the one that every bloke hates, basically, regardless of what you might say. According to this least surprising story of the day, a third of singles say they tell online fibs to make a good first impression. I'm surprised it's that low.
Yeah, but
everybody tells lies.
This is a kind of like, breaking news, the Pope is Catholic kind of story, to go back to our previous discussion.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's, as you say, it's not a big shocker that people might tell a few white lies in pursuit of
the most common white
romance.
lies people tell about themselves online include using old or altered photographs. Yeah. I'm not saying I've done any of this, by the way. Fabricating hobbies such as music, sport or reading lists, inflating a job role or salary, pretending to agree with the date's opinions and lying about your height. Sounds like Rachel Reeves, doesn't it? You know, what's her dating profile? Yeah, I used to run the Bank of England, and also I'm very good at chess.
Yeah. Have you read my copy and pasted book?
Yeah, which I nicked from somebody else.
Yeah.
She'd be brilliant on this, wouldn't she? I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? How about this from Paul in Fife? We have the judges who return Sarah Sharif to her sadistic father. We have judges who don't deport criminals because their sons prefer chicken nuggets, British ones. We have judges who award illegal migrants compensation of £100,000 for being wrongly detained. At what point do we examine who is acting as judges in this country? I think that's a very good point. You know, in America, you see Donald Trump. I think this is now day 20, unbelievably, of his presidency, and just actually sweeping around the country and just going, no more of that, no more of this, we're not having that. I mean, this stuff about the US aid department, which seems to have been giving billions and billions of dollars around the world to the most ridiculous causes. You know, I think it's time we had a proper examination of our judges, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where clearly the law is an issue, and you know, they are implementing what they're working within a framework that's been given to them. But at the same time, there's always going to be issues with a certain level of bias and jaundice. It'd be absurd. We recognise that exists in other areas of life. And especially when you've got the prospect of, and we've seen it time and again in recent years, of judges, you know, lathering praise on Just Stop Oil people before they reluctantly send them down.
Seems to be
it indicates something.
In only one direction. That seems to be the trouble. Tom Slater, thank you very much indeed. Coming up, we're going to be crossing live to the farming protest, and we'll get more of your voice notes and more of your calls. This is Morning Glory.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. A shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in or far ball, slides it in. An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No. There's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 2 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. 4 glorious hours of Morning Glory every single weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10. It was a pretty miserable weekend. It didn't stop raining where I was. It wasn't a very happy one for walking the dog, I have to say. We've got some great stories this morning, though. Once again, Labour dominating the headlines because, guess what? They've got a very, very nasty streak in them, as everybody knows. It's anti-Semitic, it's anti-old people, it's basically anti-constituent. A man who has now been outed, Andrew Gwynn MP, who's a Minister of State, by the way, in the Ministry of Health. He's basically been fired. He's been suspended from the Labour Party. He's still, however, taking the money as an MP. A lot of people think he shouldn't be. Tony is one of them. Andrew Gwynn MP should face prosecution for hate speech, he says. Manchester police are apparently investigating him for some of the things that he said on WhatsApp, which I will read to you in a little while. Some of them are a bit too vile to be read out in public, but I will do the ones that are available to be done. Meanwhile, a second Labour MP is now in trouble. Yet another terrible scandal for Keir Starmer, who can't seem to get a break when it comes to scandals. Every single weekend now, the Sunday papers are stuck into him literally like a limpet. He can't shake them off. There's pictures of him on the front pages this morning missing a penalty, believe it or not, when he was playing football at the weekend in an England shirt, looking for all the world about as hapless as he can look. But the second Labour MP, a guy by the name of Oliver Ryan, 29-year-old MP for Burnley, he's now under a threat of being fired, presumably by the Labour Party as well, because what the hell is he doing? Joining in this WhatsApp conversation, which is really, really disrespectful to pensioners, really wishing them dead, by the way. That's one of the things they were doing. Also, we've got the story this morning that the judges in this country have gone completely mad. An Albanian gangster, an Albanian criminal, will not be deported back to his home country because his 10-year-old son doesn't like the chicken nuggets they make there. I kid you not, I am not joking. Let's get a voice note from Tim.
Hi, Mike. Tim from North Devon. Please don't deport me, because I like my chicken nuggets from UK. They're finger-licking good.
Goodness me. I don't know where we're going to go with this, but I'm pretty sure It can't get any more ridiculous in this country, can it? 0344 499 1000. We've got the BBC asking Angela Rayner if she called Prince Andrew a nonce. I mean, I can't get over that one. We've also got all manner of stories coming into us this morning. Apparently the Church of England says you can't use wine which is non-alcoholic for part of the communion service. I thought it was meant to be a miracle. Surely you could use anything. I mean, he turns water into wine. That's non-alcoholic, isn't it? Can't he go the other way? Turn non-alcoholic wine into wine? Well, surely you can do that. 0344 499 1000. I don't know what else to say. This is Morning Glory. Oh dear. And also, least surprising story of the day, right? State schools haven't got any room for private pupils. You remember the private pupils that we said would be leaving private schools because the prices were going up, thanks to old Rachel from Accounts, putting up VAT for the first time on private schools. So all of those private school pupils who can't afford to stay in private school have come into the state school system, which we said they would, and when we said that they would overrun it and overpower it, that's exactly what has happened, according to a front page story in the Times. It says here, state schools have got no spare spaces in some year groups across dozens of councils, prompting fears they will struggle to cope with increased demand due to Labour's tax raid. Well done, Rach. Absolutely brilliant. Let's talk to Joanna Bell, a political journalist, and get her view of this rather strange world on Monday, the 10th of February. It's only the 10th. It's only 20 days for Donald Trump. You know, we've had nearly 7 months of Labour, Joanna. I mean, can't get any worse, can it? I say that every week.
Oh my God, it's absolutely horrendous. I mean, some of these text messages would make Kanye West blush.
I mean, really?
It's crazy. I mean, and not just about, you know, the contents of the text messages, but how utterly stupid they are to have put them in a group chat.
Yes. But this is the thing that people, I think, find the most surprising about these supposedly intelligent individuals who write things down which, you know, we used to call it the private eye test. You know, if it's not going to look very good in private eye, don't write it down, don't send it to somebody, and certainly don't put it into a general group of people where loads of people can see it.
Yeah, and people are calling for them to be prosecuted, and Keir Starmer was the one that wanted to, or that did prosecute people for putting, you know, things on Twitter and Facebook, but, yeah, you know, the contents of these WhatsApp messages are worse than what people were sent down for.
Well, listen, I said this to Tom Slater, who was here. I mean, I'm not one that normally wants to see people prosecuted and jailed for things that they say, but on the other hand, some of this stuff is anti-Semitic, which there is a law against, and a lot of it is very, very offensive. And certainly if it was a Tory MP, you can imagine the furore that would be being created in Labour benches about how to sack the person, you know, hound him out of his job, hound him out of Parliament, take his pension away and lock him up.
Well, exactly. I mean, they're absolute hypocrites. They spent the whole time when the Tories were in power criticising the Tories for being the nasty party, and here they are acting like Alan Bastard from the New Statesman.
I know,
it's
incredible.
Absolutely ridiculous. I
know. And what about this guy as well, the 29-year-old MP who's now been roped into this scandal, Oliver Ryan, 29-year-old MP for Burnley. He's posted more than 2,000 messages, he says. He's made an abject apology and said he's very, very sorry. But surely he has to be fired as well, doesn't he?
Well, he should resign as an MP. I mean, how can you look your constituents in the eye again? He should definitely resign and do the right thing and trigger a by-election.
Yes, and I think so should Andrew Gwynn, right?
Of course. I mean, how can they continue? Their positions are untenable.
I mean, we've now got Labour with a guy currently facing an assault charge, a Labour MP from the northwest of England, facing an assault charge for a video that went round showing him punching a you know, constituent. That trial is yet to take place. I mean, I don't know if he's going to plead guilty or innocent, but that's, you know, that's one kind of behaviour. This is a different kind of abuse that's being handed out. You know, to wish people dead, to wish pensioners dead. I mean, are they trying to get themselves knocked out of office?
I mean, you know, people have already lost so much faith in politicians, and, you know, Labour are meant to be, you know, bleeding heart liberals, and here they are acting worse than I've ever seen any Tory politician act.
Yeah. So, it is amazing. And meanwhile, things go from bad to worse for Starmer. He's now being asked questions about who paid for the voice coach that we're told he's had for years, which seems hard to believe given the way that he talks. But, you know, apparently that's what he is.
He should get his money back, or the taxpayer's money back, if it's the case that the taxpayer paid.
I'm sorry. I'm told Mike Ainsbury has in fact pleaded guilty to assault by beating.
Oh, wow.
So what is he still doing, taking an MP's salary?
Well, he should resign. I mean, he should have resigned when that video came out. I mean, I don't think the video, could be any clearer. He assaulted someone.
Right.
He should have resigned immediately, and Keir Starmer should have forced him to resign.
Right. But they're full of this nonsense, aren't they? I mean, I saw another Labour MP being interviewed yesterday on one of the morning programmes, and, he was like, they hide behind these inquiries. Oh, well, it would be wrong for me to comment on whether, this guy Gwynn should resign because there's an inquiry. I wouldn't want to influence it. It's absolute rubbish. You can't influence an inquiry. An inquiry is an inquiry. It's not a lawsuit. It's not a court case. It's simply an internal inquiry to decide whether or not, Andrew Gwynn is a piece of something that I can't say at this time of the morning. I don't think there's any doubt that he is.
Well, look, they always sit between two chairs. They're towing the party line, as it were, and if somebody should take a stand in the party against this bad behaviour. But it seems like there was more than two people in this group.
Well, exactly.
Chat.
Councillors were in it, and there was at least two MPs. There were all manner of Labour members, no doubt, and Labour apparatchiks. Why did they not say anything?
Well, exactly, and you have to wonder why are they. If you were in a group, like, you would leave the group, I imagine, if you were, subjected to those lewd comments.
Yeah. Well, I think, like if that was a group of police officers, right, they would all be fired, and some of them might be facing some kind of court action.
Well, I think when two girls got murdered in London and police WhatsApp lewd pictures of them while they were dead, I think they did jail time for that.
Yes, they did. And I mean, that is the standard by which these MPs surely should be held. They should be held to a higher standard, perhaps, even
100%.
than the police. And Kate says this, good morning, Mike. Can't just be me making a comparison between the sacked Labour minister for wishing death upon a constituent and those labelled far right and imprisoned by the same government for Facebook and X posts of a similar nature, says Kate in the Wirral. I mean, she's got a point, hasn't she?
100%. They can't make the rules and then break them themselves. They were the ones that condemned the Tory party for having lockdown parties, and then they do the exact same thing. It's too much mudslinging and not enough improving the country. We need to all, take a step back and stop with the mudslinging, because they're just as bad as the Tories,
if not worse. If
exactly.
not worse. I mean, the Daily Star, who we don't highlight very often, has got Keir Starmer on the front page this morning. Hypocrite alert, they say. Biggles 2.0. Jet Set Prime Minister splashes £700,000 on foreign travel after mocking Rishi Biggles Sunak's chopper use, because he was making fun of the helicopter that Rishi Sunak used to use to travel around. But, I mean, this guy's never at home. He's almost always on a plane somewhere. 700,000 quid. Again, I wouldn't care that much, except for the hypocrisy of what they said at the time when they weren't in power, where, in fact, I think we've got a clip somewhere of Rachel Reeves saying that she's going to ban private jet use.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, he went off on a jolly, I think, within the first 3 months to South America. He's been dubbed Never Hear Keir.
Yeah. By me, amongst others.
Yeah, well, exactly. He's got a few monikers. But he also criticised Rishi Sunak for taking a private jet before, and then he swanned off to Germany on one.
That's right.
So you just have to wonder. I mean, this guy is so wishy-washy. It's unbelievable.
It really is. In fact, we found the brilliant people behind the glass have found the Rachel Reeves clip that quickly. Here she is talking about what she would do if she was the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
We will crack down on Tory ministers' private jet habit. What is Rishi Sunak so scared of up there in his private jet? Meeting a voter? Well, we will properly enforce the ministerial code on the use of private planes and save millions of pounds for taxpayers in the process.
Yeah, actually, no, you won't do that, because David Lammy's cost about £1 million already, and this is another 700,000. So 1.7 million so far, and that doesn't include Ed Miliband, by the way, who's been to at least 3 very, very long-haul distance conferences. He went to Baku, I think, didn't he, for the COP29. He's been in South America for another climate change conference. He was in Washington for one. I think he was also in Doha for something else. I mean, it's unbelievable how these people are just completely and utterly hypocritical, and they think nobody will notice. And by the way, Rishi Sunak might have been frightened of meeting one of his constituents or his voters, but at least he didn't wish them dead. You know, this is what Labour seem to do.
Well, that's true. And, you know, I think it was said that Keir Starmer has spent 161,000 more than Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak did in the same time period.
Yeah.
He had a huge majority. He could be making a big difference, but he's chosen to throw that opportunity away.
Yeah, absolutely right. And meanwhile, inside the Daily Star, they're the only ones that I can see so far. I've got a picture of Keir Starmer taking a penalty shortly before he misses it. I mean, if that's not a sort of a parable of our times, I don't know what is. He takes a left-footed shot and completely misses it.
Well, that's him all over, you know. I mean, like you said in a previous show, we're the laughing stock of the world.
Yeah.
You know, Rishi is on tour. It's like a clown on tour, isn't it?
It really is. Well, now we've got the Albanian story this morning as well, as if everything wasn't mad enough, that we've now got basically a criminal who has become a British citizen, by the way, somehow, over the course of time, even though he came here illegally as a 15-year-old boy. He can't be apparently deported because his son, who's 10, doesn't like the chicken nuggets in Albania and prefers the chicken nuggets here, and that's part of his human rights, apparently.
Well, this ruling is absolutely deranged. And, you know, the ECHR, we don't have to take everything they say. We can be a little bit unscrupulous and ignore their mad rulings, like some countries do.
Well, exactly. I've always said that that's what we should do. We don't have to, you know, dramatically leave the ECHR. We just have to go, we're not going to do what you want, which is what Germany does, it's what Sweden does, it's what the French have been doing for years. Absolutely incredible. Listen, good to see you. Nice to talk to you, Joanna Bell there, on the latest madness from what is going on in this country. These foreign criminals are running rings around this government, says Jennifer. And Wendy in Dover says, our chicken nuggets, Mike, are indeed the best in the world, but I'm reliably informed that other foods are available. Yes, I think so. I don't think the boy should be on a diet of chicken. I'm surprised the Labour government haven't prosecuted him for just feeding his son chicken nuggets instead of avocados or something. Let's get a voice note from Laura.
Morning, Mike. Laura in Wiltshire. Listening to all of your chat about disability. My husband is completely blind, as was his late twin brother. Something that happened to them slightly later in life, but gradually. You should listen to how disabled people talk about themselves. The language is really, really not woke and often hilarious. All this nonsense is just that. Great show.
I'm sure it is. Absolutely right. Listen, I've been around plenty of people over my years of being alive on this earth, many of them who are disabled in one way, shape or form, and they do make fun of themselves and they make fun of the problems that they have. They certainly don't want to be described as, you know, non-disabled, or, you know, they don't care what you call them, most of them. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Dave says this morning, Mike, perhaps we should ask Raina's hairdresser if the fringe is wonky, or would she not recognise what she asked for? Very good. This is Morning Glory. Back after this with more from the farmers.
the BBC News in the last few days, concerns over appearance of hostages on both sides. I haven't noticed any hostages that Israel has taken. I've noticed quite a lot of prisoners. I just worry that there are so many, apparently, they say they're responsible news organisations that aren't telling the truth.
It's an utter perversity, and I have tried to call the BBC out on it. Last week I spoke to them about the third time that they've done this, and they just completely pushed back at me and just kind of denied it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. 21 minutes past the 7. Sean in Gloucester says, "Morning, Mike. Great show to start the week. Like most people, I'm sick to death of the sheer ridiculousness of this country now. We have definitely become a joke, but I'm struggling to see the punchline. Get these lunatics out." Well, one of the things that we talk about an awful lot on this show, of course, is the state of the government's fiscal policy. The fact that they're charging us up the wazoo with all kinds of taxes that they've reinvented or just invented in order to punish people, hard-working people who are trying to get by doing a basic job of work, making a living, not scrounging, actually trying to contribute something to this economy and to this world. Let's talk to Gareth Wynne-Jones now, because of course he's leading the farmers' protest, and there's a big protest today going on in Westminster. They're on their way to Westminster, I think, as we speak. Outside Parliament today, there's going to be speeches. It's going to be all sorts of, it's not celebrity names, but big political names, including Nigel Farage, I believe. Gareth, a very good morning to you.
Bonada, how are you?
No, very well indeed. Very well indeed. Thanks very much for joining us. You guys have proven that you're pretty hard to shift. You're not going to move your position. You're certainly not going to give in to this government. What's happening today? Tell us.
Well, there's a lot of farmers turning up in tractors. A lot of farmers are travelling down to London, to Westminster, to share our frustrations again with this government that aren't listening to us. We need to stop this inheritance tax. We are an industry already on its knees, and if this country wants to produce food affordably, they need to be backing British agriculture, building a better Britain on our bellies, and we need the support of the government for them to understand how important farmers are in the equation of producing food.
Yeah, exactly right. And there's some kind of e-petition which is being discussed today by the MPs in Parliament, 148,000 signatures calling to keep the inheritance rules as they are currently. Have you got any MPs on side in there?
Now, let's wait and find out. We're not hearing a lot from our MPs about it, and that's what's frustrating as well. Nor from, we need the government to be listening, at least have a conversation with the farmers.
Yeah.
Let's talk to the Treasury. Let's hear some feedback, and that's what is pushing us farmers to come out again. Not one farmer wants to be in London today. Everybody wants to be at home, tending to their animals and watching after their crops so we can feed people affordably in this country. So let's have Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves out there talking to farmers and explaining their situation, because this black hole is beginning to get a bit of a I don't want to swear, but it's getting to be a bit of a joke at this moment.
No, I get that. Because presumably in your business, you're making plans now. I mean, this change in the inheritance tax is meant to be coming in April 2026. I presume normally at this time of the year, you're making plans for 2026 already.
We're always working ahead, but there's people in their later years that want to die before that date, so they're not going to have to pay this inheritance tax. This isn't the situation we should be in. We should be making plans for the future, making sure that we're able to produce food on this small island to feed people affordably. So it's frustrating for us to be worried about the future of our farms. My dad's 88, and the farm's still in his name, and it's going to be a tremendous struggle for us as a family to pay that inheritance tax.
Yeah.
If they lifted that threshold up to 9, 10, 12, 15 million, you know, if that's what they want to hit, the big landowners and the people that are coming in to buy the land, you know, to stop paying taxes, yeah, which is fair enough, but not hit the family farms,
Right.
not the working people.
And there was always a discrepancy, wasn't there, with Rachel Reeves's figures and your figures, and in fact even the Treasury's figures. So, I mean, why won't they just admit they got it wrong?
Yeah, well, their figures were poppycock, to be honest with you. I'm going to have to shoot, but it's been absolutely amazing. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
And,
Listen, don't worry. Gareth Wynne-Jones, we wish you the best of luck for the day. We'll see you again soon. Gareth Wynne-Jones there talking about the battle for Britain. There's a meeting going on at Belmont Farm in Mill Hill this morning. As we speak, there's hundreds of farmers and with their tractors gathering up there because they're kind of meet there for a sort of pit stop, if you like, before they make their way into Westminster. There's plenty of them on their way into Westminster already. Amongst the speakers included today at that parliamentary event, Nigel Farage is one of them. Liam Halligan is another one, of course, as well. But the problem is not very many MPs have come out in support of our farmers, and surely that's what is now needed. I mean, these Labour MPs, what a collection of weasels they are. They must be, because surely to heavens they must realise that if they've got farming in their constituency, they must know that they should be serving those constituents. I mean, unlike our friend Mr Gwynn, who, of course, has now been forced to resign his ministerial position in the Department of Health because he actually wished some of his voters dead, you know, surely they would want to help them. Let's get a voice note from Phil.
Good morning, Mike. Phil from Nottingham. Great show. Yeah, not disabled. As the father of a child who attends a special needs college, I find it hard enough to keep up with the bloody terminology they use. I'm not precious about it because not everybody understands, and neither should anyone else be. As long as people aren't being downright offensive, then what's the problem? I find generally day to day most people are very sensitive and empathetic when we talk about it. A lot of time they tread on eggshells because they simply don't know what they should be saying. And this is the problem. This is the nonsense that we live with.
Absolutely right. Phil, and many people will agree with this. I mean, you may have a disabled member of your family. You may have somebody that you know who's a friend of yours. You may have somebody, you know, who is blind, or somebody who is deaf, or somebody, you know, who has a speech impediment of some kind, or somebody who is in some way disabled in what would be the term used. But, you know, nobody cares in the end. Most people I know, anyway, who are disabled in one way, shape or form, they don't care about what it is that people refer to them as. This idea that people who don't have a disability should now be regarded as non-disabled is bonkers. How about this from Jackie? Is it April the 1st? I keep up your free speech on our behalf. I can't stop laughing already. Well, it's mad, isn't it? And Graham in mid-Wales says this: I'm no expert on chicken nuggets, but I can say the best ones I've ever had were made in Cuba and served brilliantly in a place somewhere near Guantanamo Bay. Perhaps you should try those before making his decision. Well, of course, that's another one of Donald Trump's great missions, which is to send a load of illegal migrants, some of the most dangerous ones, who maybe some countries won't wish to take back. He's going to send 30,000 of them to Guantanamo Bay, which has a ready-made holding pen, and it's quite a difficult place to leave, as he said. Quite a difficult place to get away from, not least because you have to swim to Florida. It's not very easy to do. Why on earth are we being run by people who allow this kind of nonsense to go ahead? It's the page one story in the Telegraph today. An Albanian criminal who can't be deported despite being a recidivist criminal and somebody who has committed multiple crimes here since he became a British citizen many years ago in 2006 or 7. He can't be deported to Albania because his 10-year-old son doesn't think he'd like the chicken nuggets there. He only likes British ones. I kid you not, this is actually a story in this country in 2025. Absolutely and utterly unbelievable. The anti-corruption minister is suspected of corruption. The health minister wants old people dead, and the deputy says the leader couldn't run a bath. What a shower. All the best to you, says Mike from Ains. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. That's where we are. You know, incredible. That's our Labour government in 2025. I mean, surely to God they can't last out the year, can they? This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 7:32. Paul in Peterborough says this, Mike, is it not time to start calling out the names of the lawyers and judges who approve the nonsensical human rights decisions? That might slow it down due to their own embarrassment. Well, there is, I mean, unbelievable sort of rich seams to explore here, because so many of our judges appear to be completely and utterly unaware of what this country wants, what this country expects of them, and why they should not be doing what they're doing. Of course, you'll get some very highfalutin legal types who will always say, oh yeah, but you know, here's the thing, you know, we can't have political interference in anything to do with the legal system. Well, if you believe that, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you, because if you think Keir Starmer has not been interfering with the judicial system in this country vis-a-vis the numbers of people who have been chased and put in prison by the CPS and by the courts during the summer of last year, then I think, as I say, you've got another thing coming. It's very obvious that there was an instruction that went out to say be very, very hard on these people, get somebody to convince them to all plead guilty, and we'll lock them all up for a much longer time than most people would get locked up for serious criminal offences. Offences including violent offenders, offences including sexual offences, offences including, you might say, like Hugh Edwards, paedophilia. He's still walking around. People don't like it. You know, the idea that this judge is saying you can't send a guy to Albania because of his human rights is a complete nonsense. Look at what's happening in America. Look at the way Donald Trump is changing the way that America is viewed around the world. You know, this is a guy who said he would do something and he's doing it. His approval rating actually went up this weekend, believe it or not, because more people than ever, I think as many as 70% in a CBS poll, said he's actually doing what they want him to do. Let's get a voice note from James.
Good morning, Mike. I don't know if you saw Trump's press secretary. Cool. What an awesome woman she is. Straight to the point. Certainly put those woke journalists to rights. Miles better than Biden's press secretary. Of course, she was absolutely terrible, she was. It's a pity our politicians can't take the same route. Never mind, there you go. Wishful thinking, eh, Mike?
Yeah,
Keep up
absolutely.
the great work.
Yeah, I've been praising her for some time. In fact, all of last week we were playing a clip. Carolina Leavitt, I think is her name, who absolutely bestrides the White House press room like a Goliath. She's absolutely brilliant. Let's talk to Jennifer Ewing from Republicans Overseas. Jennifer, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. Good morning.
It's so refreshing to watch that young woman, Carolina Leavitt. I mean, she's not that young. She's 27. She's got such a command of that room. I've never seen anything like it, really. You know, she bats away questions. She answers some questions. She's incredibly sort of funny. She's charming. She's incredibly good at her job. I don't know where Donald Trump found her.
Well, actually, I believe she worked for Kayleigh McEnany before, who is a press secretary. And then also she ran for, I believe it was Congress in New Hampshire.
Right.
She didn't win, but she's been on the political scene for a while. You know, as you said, she was in her mid-20s when she did that. But no, you know what it is? It's just, it's just so, it's not even conservative values, everything. It's just common sense.
Right.
The self-censoring has stopped, and she's not afraid to talk about what most people are thinking.
Right.
And again, as you said, that's refreshing. And authenticity helped Donald Trump win this election. Even people who didn't agree with everything he had to say, at least they knew what it was he was planning on doing, because he'd been listening to them. And that's what we've seen, whether it be these executive orders that he's taken or some of the issues that he's tackling. It's exactly what the voters have told him they care about. Secure our border, get inflation under control, and we do not want to have fires all around the world with regards to our disastrous foreign policy.
Yeah, absolutely right. And this CBS poll that came out overnight, most people describing him as tough, energetic, focused, effective, doing what he promised during his campaign. I think we could do with some of that here because, of course, what we don't have is a government here that knows what it's doing and is doing all the wrong things and doing all the things that they said they wouldn't do.
No, I think you're right, Mike. And I've lived here in the UK for 20 years and loved it very much. But this government, and dare I say even the Conservative government before it, it just feels like it's at war with its own people. It's quite combative against the wishes of the people and what the English people and the people of the United Kingdom are asking for, which, while not exactly like what the people in the United States are asking for, there's some overlaps for sure with regards to out of control illegal immigration, with energy security. My God, I mean, one of the greatest things that Trump's going to do is, drill, baby, drill. But you cannot have national security or an economy without your own source of oil and gas. And it would be great if the UK could do that rather than buying gas from, the United States at the wrong price or other people.
Exactly. I mean, there's a couple of clips to look at here. Let's have a look at Donald Trump's entrance. Believe it or not, I mean, I was surprised that this was a statistic, but apparently he's the first sitting president to ever attend a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, he seems to be everywhere. I mean, he doesn't. I don't know what he.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, and let's not forget that it was just New Year's Day when that. All of those horrific things happen, whether that was a terrorist attack or not, is incredible. But this is a man who's very accessible. He'll talk to anybody. Right. He'll talk to hostile press, friendly press. It's great to see.
Yeah, absolutely right. And here's another one of him flying over what used to be the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
But, of course, now it's been renamed the Gulf of America. Check it out.
Air Force One is currently in international waters for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Wow, he did that well.
Gulf of America.
Make America great again, right? That's what we care about. Okay, here we go.
And there he is, signing a few more executive orders. I mean, it really is quite staggering, the speed with which things are getting done there. I mean, I didn't even know you could do that in government. I mean, I guess we've all been sort of, stunned into this kind of, state where we think, well, nothing can happen very quickly because that's what they always say. You get the Labour government or the Biden administration. I don't know what they did for 4 years, although we do know that they gave an awful lot of money to through US aid to some pretty weird places in the world for some pretty weird things.
Yeah, that USAID, right? It's international development, right? It's not actually aid, so that's a misnomer. And the uproar from the people who don't like Trump is incredible, when really all Doge, Elon Musk, and this fabulous crew of kids, really, that he's hired to help him out, are doing is pointing out waste, fraud, and abuse, which we all pay for as American, who pay taxes. So I don't understand why anybody has a problem with that. There was a lot of corruption, there was a lot of nonsense, and for the good programs, which there were many, those will continue to be funded at some point. It's just like taking a look at your household budget. Again, common sense.
Yeah, but millions and millions of dollars, billions in fact in total, I suppose, being given to projects which are so bizarre that you would think somebody somewhere would have gone, are you sure about this? How do you even know that this is a proper organisation you're giving the money to?
No, exactly, and it's tied up in all sorts of very, we'll see what comes out, but very sinister sort of foreign policy issues, nonsense things like, trans plays in Peru, and, the whole gamut. And if nothing else, at least Americans now are very engaged in what's going on and how their money is being spent. So this is a good thing. Transparency.
And it shows you how quickly, if you bring somebody in from the business world, from the commercial world, how quickly efficiencies can be made. Because the government, and I would make this accusation about any government, including our own, are so full of waste.
No, that's true. And, I remember during lockdown and, those horrific years where you would read things about the NHS. And you would say, the NHS pays X for ibuprofen or clubs, and then you'd just been at Boots, your local Boots, and said, well, actually I could buy that for 1/3 of the price. So what's going on here? So people are not stupid, and they don't like waste, and let's hope it spreads to this country as well, so our tax dollars don't go down the toilet.
Well, that would be nice. Speaking of tax dollars, let's have a look at what's going on in Vancouver. I know it's a slightly not the 51st state of America yet, but up in Canada, they've got the pleasure of having Harry and Meghan there for the Invictus Games. We've got a little clip for you. This was them sort of being driven through, I guess, the underground part of the stadium before they got to the top of it, where all the workers are kind of lined up. They're waving to them like they're in some kind of Pope-mobile. You know, I don't know who they think they are, but this is supposed to be about the people taking part in the Invictus Games rather than, you know, the Harry and Meghan show. Isn't that quite an extraordinary thing?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, the Invictus Games are obviously, that's wonderful, and I'm happy that attention is being drawn, you know, to those people and those former wonderful brave soldiers.
I haven't seen them drawing attention to anybody actually in the games. I've only seen them drawing attention to themselves.
You're right, but in theory, you know, the Invictus Games. But I think they're having a very difficult time leaving the spotlight. And considering they asked for privacy, what was that, a few years ago?
Yeah.
They've been the ones courting the media. I know, you know, from people in California, where I'm from, you know, that ship has sailed. I don't think people are interested in them as much anymore. And, you know, Harry probably's made a big mistake by, you know, leaving behind his brother and his father, and let's see what happens.
Well, the good news for us is that Donald Trump says he's not going to deport him, so hopefully he can stay in California for the duration.
Yeah, that was quite funny. I guess spoken, you know, how sometimes people speak about other people's spouses. So again, another sort of realist comment for Donald Trump, even though some might think it's inappropriate.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think he's absolutely spot on, and so do most people, I think, who have seen it. Great to see you, Jennifer. Thanks very much indeed. Jennifer Ewing, Republicans Overseas. One from Dean in Dagenham, who says, "Morning, Mike. Regarding the Nugget story, I wonder who came up with it, the lawyer or the deportee? Utter madness." Yeah, well, it doesn't matter who came up with it. It probably wasn't the deportee. But let's face it, any judge with the sound mind should have just immediately kicked it into touch and said, "I'm not letting you get away with that rubbish. What the hell do you think you're doing?" Absolutely incredible. We've got loads more to do. Coming up, we're going to be speaking about the migrant problem and more on the Albanian who can't be deported. But first, we've got some very exciting news for all you Talk listeners and viewers. It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a news broadcasting network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Well, isn't that great? Let's get a voice note from Brian on chicken nuggets.
Morning, Mike. Brian from Southend. You know, this country just gets ridiculous every day. I can't believe now we can't deport people because their sons don't like chicken nuggets. Oh, God, how stupid. Hey, Keir Starmer over the weekend in that England football kit taking a penalty. Do you know what sprung to mind? That PE teacher in Kes. God almighty.
The PE teacher in Kes, did he say, that film? Yeah, I remember Kes. I haven't seen it for a long time. I think I remember the PE teacher. We may have to be reminded of that coming up. Here's one from Tony in Barrow in Furness. Mike, will Starmer be calling for Andrew Gwynn to be jailed after Southport saw Starmer calling for hurty words to be jailed? Well, that's a very interesting one, isn't it? And also, on the subject of judges, says Mike in Colchester, Elon Musk has suggested that the worst performing 1% of judges are fired each year to weed out incompetence. An excellent idea, but we need to increase that to closer to 10% for our woke bunch of lefty judges. Well, of course, the difference in America is that judges are actually elected by and large. When you go down to vote for your local senator, your national senator, your member for the House of Representatives, you often vote for the chief of police, you often vote for the judge in your neck of the woods as well. And of course, Supreme Court judges are appointed by the president. So it's a very different system there. And so as a result, they don't have quite so many numpties, because we've just got the usual kind of, you know, limp, liberal, lefty, champagne socialist type of judges. You know, they don't have the hang 'em and flog 'em type anymore, because I think they've all died off. and they've all been infected by the sort of woke mind virus. These are the same people who continually let off people from Just Stop Oil on the grounds that, you know, they're quite nice people, really, and they've got a really good cause. So the fact that they've smashed a load of windows at the headquarters of an international bank means they don't really need to go to jail because they're doing the right thing for the planet. Do me a favour. I mean, we really do need root and branch reform, do we not, if you'll pardon me the expression, and get some decent judges who actually understand why Britain needs to be fixed. Because it doesn't just need to be fixed by politicians. It needs to be fixed against the criminals that are dragging us down. It needs to be fixed against the shoplifters, against, you know, the rapists, against all of the people coming here illegally who should be deported. You know, it's not going to work unless we do that. It's as simple as that. 7:47.
Nigel Farage, according to the Daily Mail, is prepared to work with Boris. Now, if you read this, it's not actually Reform Tory. Nigel Farage is prepared to work with Boris Johnson, allegedly, according to this article, to defeat Labour in the national interest. Based on current polling, this mega party, Reform Tory mega party, would trounce Sir Keir Starmer. Look, at the end of the day, there is no way that the Reform would do a deal with the Conservatives. And the one thing that Nigel Farage is very good at is playing them and playing the medium, I would suggest.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, and of course, this is the home of common sense. There's an awful lot of nonsense out there at the moment, not least this story about the Albanian immigrant who is now a UK citizen who can't be deported because his son doesn't like the chicken nuggets that he served anywhere outside of Britain. And if you believe that story and you're a judge, you really ought to sack yourself, quite frankly. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. Andy in Portsmouth here. Just a quick one on the old chicken nugget debate. What is the world coming to? I can't believe this is actually happening. A guy cannot be deported who's a typical recidivist just because his son won't eat the chicken nuggets. You really can't make this stuff up. Great show, Mike.
Brilliant. Andy, you can't make it up, can you? I mean, there'll be a lot of people thinking about chicken nuggets this morning now and going, I think I'll go get some. Actually, they're quite good. Not bad at all. By the way, some breaking news for you. Apparently, Keir Starmer's taken an HIV test. He wants to highlight how important it is to get one, because it's going to be HIV Testing Awareness Week coming up. Took one at the weekend, apparently. Don't know what the result was. I will let you know when we find out. Carl Williams is here, Research Director at the Centre for Policy Studies. Carl, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you. It says here in the Sun, 4,000 illegal staff arrested in nail bars, car washes and takeaways. What it doesn't say is what happens to them after that. I would have said the arresting bit's the easy bit, isn't it? The deporting bit is the hard bit, as we've seen from the story today about the Albanian and the chicken nuggets.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Labour are saying a lot about how they've got numbers up again, and yes, they are up on the last few years. But actually removing foreign national offenders is still way below where it was in the early 2010s. And it really collapsed from about 2016, 17, 18 onwards because of the Windrush scandal, because of the Modern Slavery Act. And yeah, we've just got to a point where people get here, they commit crimes, and they find it very easy to stay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the story of this guy from Albania, he came here as a 15-year-old boy, unaccompanied in February 2001. He claimed that he was from the former Yugoslavia, which a lot of people did around about that time, because we were giving sort of safe haven, if you like, to Kosovan refugees. Who were obviously Muslims, but it was people who were just from Albania who came, in a large part, who claimed that they were Kosovan Muslims and they were facing ethnic cleansing, and so they were given, you know, the permission to stay. Basically, his asylum claim was rejected, though, but he managed to get UK citizenship 6 years later, after being granted sort of exceptional circumstances status. I mean, it just seems to me that almost anyone who comes here, if you get refused the first time, just keep trying and trying and trying until you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing we've seen recently is Kemi Badenoch announce the Conservatives want to do things on changing how easy it is to settle here and get citizenship and making the period longer, which in theory would give us more options to deport people who entered illegally or committed crimes whilst here. But also we have to think about the broader sort of human rights framework. You know, this absurd example of the chicken nugget is downstream of a whole sort of set of problems we have to address.
Yeah, absolutely right. Meanwhile, we've got Labour government now putting out very strange-looking sort of promises to crack down on illegal migrant gangs. They've done a series of sort of Facebook adverts which look as if they're intended to make people think they're on the side of reform. It's done in the same blue colour. They don't do anything else in this colour. You know, Labour does things in red, generally speaking. What's going on with this?
Well, they're clearly running scared of what's going on in the polls, and they've probably got their own internal polling that shows their support is plummeting in the so-called red wall amongst their traditional voters. Just on what they're saying around cracking down on the gangs, like this isn't a new idea. The last government spent years doing that, and yes, at the margin. But as the crime bosses, I think the policing bosses will say, ultimately that is not the solution. You need a proper deterrent, and we don't have one at the moment.
No, of course. And there's going to be a debate, I think, today. The new migrant bill is going through Parliament. This is the one that gives the government supposedly more power to investigate those people coming, more power to sort of grab bank accounts from smugglers, and more power to take phones off people. I mean, it's all a bit too little, too late, isn't it? And also, all these people already know they're breaking the law. Why would they adhere to a new one?
Well, exactly. I mean, the last government passed two major pieces of legislation around exactly the same issue. Look how much difference that's made in the long run. I think this new bill, fine, but it's just addressing the symptoms, not the causes of the problem. The causes of the problem are people want to come to this country because it's a nice country, and once you're here, we're very, very bad at removing you, so you've got a pretty good chance of staying. Until we change that, people are going to keep coming. And there's a business for the smugglers in getting those people here. Right.
I mean, Starmer went to see Giorgia Meloni, didn't he, a few months back in Italy to get some tips on how they managed to reduce their sort of incoming migrants, because they have done, I think, by about 70%. You could also take a look at what they're doing in America, but yet we still seem to be slaves to the ECHR.
Yeah, I think there's a real reluctance, particularly in Labour, to discuss that. We've seen all this absurd stuff with Lord Hermer and adherence to other international bodies. I don't think Labour's going to fix that. I think this is something that the Tories have to look at very closely. Because, as I say, until we change these laws, I I think it's too hard to remove people, and therefore people have got the reason to come here.
Well, there's too many excuses to allow them to stay. I mean, is there any way, and I know this is a very, very long answer that you probably won't be able to answer in a minute or two, but, you know, the judicial system in this country seems heavily weighted towards defence lawyers when it comes to these cases. It seems as though there are no judges in this country that actually want to deport anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I should say that I'm not an expert on the legal system in any way.
But I don't think you have to be, though, to see what happens, to see how it goes on. I mean, we keep hearing, you know, we can't have, you know, the judicial system operating politically, and I understand that. But deporting dangerous people from your own country is not a political decision. Surely it's a legal one.
Well, yes, and unfortunately we have a set of laws that stop us doing that. Right. And therefore, it's a political decision to actually change those laws.
But do we, though? Because we've signed up to the ECHR, as have many other European countries, but many other European countries are deporting more people, right? And in fact, Afghanistan is one of the places that we don't deport a lot of people to because of the way that that those people might then be treated. But Germany has been exporting, you know, criminals from there to Afghanistan without any regard for whatever they might say that might happen to them when they get there. So surely if they can do it, so can we.
I mean, there's some truth to that. It's absolutely true that we gold plate all this legislation here. We have our own body of case law, and broadly speaking, the political unwillingness to change this or to push through the administrative reforms you need to crack down on this. I know Labour are making a lot at the moment of what they're doing. This is because they're running scared of reform in the polls.
Yeah.
But as I was saying earlier, that, you know, this is taking us back not even to levels where we were 10 years ago, and yet legal migration is now much, much, much higher than it was back then.
Yeah.
Both because of channel crossings and because of visa overstayers and so on.
It's absolutely ridiculous, absolutely utterly ridiculous. Carl, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. Carl Williams there, Research Director at the Centre for Policy Studies. Coming up in the next hour, Rakib Hassan is going to be here. We'll talk to him some more about the latest on this Labour scandal. The WhatsApp group, of course, there's a new now MP been named on the front page of the Daily Mail today as having been involved in it as well. He's apologised, but what he hasn't done is resigned. Yesterday we had the Health Minister resign or be fired effectively from his job as a junior member of the Cabinet, if you like. But it's the third big loss to Keir Starmer in less than 7 months. You know, first it was the Transport Secretary who was done for fraud. Then it was Tulip Siddiq who was accused of corruption. Now it's a guy who wishes pensioners dead. I mean, what's going to happen next? Who else have they got in this crumbling party? This is Morning Glory. Back after the news.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspect in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No. There's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside of Russia. These are the missiles that Biden has approved for the use by...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. 2 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Let's just start with this, shall we? Andrew Gwynn MP, this is what he said yesterday. I deeply regret my badly misjudged comments and apologise for any offence I've caused. I've served the Labour Party all my life and it was a huge honour to be appointed a minister by Keir Starmer. I entirely understand the decisions the Prime Minister and the party have taken, and while very sad to have been suspended, will support him in any way I can. Well, as some people have pointed out, there are many people sitting in prison as a result of things they've said on WhatsApp. There are many people who have been prosecuted for hate speech, saying things which were less hateful than what this guy said in a WhatsApp group which was full of Labour Party members, councillors and at least one other MP who's currently under pressure because he's apologised for saying some terrible things as well. They basically wished people dead. They made anti-Semitic remarks about people. They made it very clear they didn't like Jews very much. They also talked about pensioners. They also talked about other constituents. They made fun of Diane Abbott. They made fun of Bernie Grant and his corpse, you know, who's a former Labour MP, of course. And these people are just clearly not fit for any kind of job that you would give them in public life. This guy still receives his salary as an MP. He has not been kicked out of the Labour Party. People were calling for that yesterday. It still hasn't happened. He is an absolute and utter disgrace and he should be ashamed to even show his face anywhere near the parliamentary estate, in my view. 0344 499 1000. Rakib Hassan is here, a political commentator. We'll get his view on all of that. Plus, of course, the Albanian who can't be kicked out of the country because his son likes the chicken nuggets that we make here in Britain. He doesn't fancy the ones he might get back home in Albania. Absolutely incredible. Also, don't call you anybody disabled anymore. And don't say that you are abled. Don't say that you are physically able to do anything. Say that you're non-disabled. That's one story. Also, people who want to go on dating apps apparently tell lies about who they are and what they do. Bit like Rachel Reeves. Absolutely extraordinary. The Chagos deal as well, according to Nigel Farage, will cost us £52 billion. Unbelievable stuff. 0344 499 1000. Oh, and guess what? State schools are full up. They haven't got any room for all the private school kids who are coming out of private school because their parents can no longer afford the VAT on the fees. We said it would happen, and of course, it is happening. 0344 499 1000. If you've forgotten how to get in touch, have a listen to this.
Old Labour HQ, there was a bit of a bustle when they found out that, no, MPs haven't been battering the constituents. No, they've just been caught wishing that they were dead instead.
What is the world coming to? I can't believe this is actually happening. A guy cannot be deported who's a typical recidivist just because his son won't eat the chicken nuggets. You really can't make this stuff up.
Brilliant. Your voice notes just get better and better and better. It's only Monday, as we say. It's 8:05. This is Morning Glory. Front page of the I newspaper says this: Labour to set out a new migration plan within weeks to counter Farage election threat. This comes as Reform, of course, put out a statement at the weekend saying under no circumstances would they be merging with the Conservative Party. Under no circumstances would they be co-opting Boris Johnson. In very, very strong terms, they made that very clear. I think Richard Tice is coming on the show a little bit later on. We'll ask him about that. But according to the I newspaper, Keir Starmer is struggling to persuade voters his crackdown is working. As Reform UK surges in the polls. Yeah, he's struggling to persuade voters his crackdown is working because it isn't. You can't tell people things are working when they're not. Angela Rayner was up trying to defend him yesterday on the BBC and didn't do a very good job because I don't think she wants to. We'll come to that in a moment. Let's talk to Rakib Hassan, political commentator. Rakib, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Just when you think that Labour can't get any worse, they managed to come out with this guy, Mr Gwynne, who thinks that he wishes pensioners would die before the next election. He's clearly anti-Semitic, has made a lot of anti-Semitic remarks on WhatsApp groups, which are very open, and therefore it seems as though he wasn't worried about anybody who saw them, because they're all in the Labour Party and they all agree with him. I mean, surely to God, the question now is, if Manchester Police are investigating him for hate speech, is anything going to happen to him? And should he not surely be kicked out of the Labour Party right now, instead of having this ridiculous idea that there's an inquiry into what should happen?
Well, Mike, some of the comments which have been revealed in the public domain, sadly, it doesn't surprise me. I've been saying for some time that there's various forms of bigotry within the Labour Party, which all too often presents itself as a caring, compassionate, and tolerant institution.
Yeah.
When it's simply not the case. I think we saw a great deal of what I call gerontophobia, hatred of the elderly, which emerged on the Liberal left following the Brexit vote.
Yeah.
Back in June 2016, Labour's also a party that's had many problems with anti-Semitism within it, and if people told for all this talk about supporting women's rights, I think, for example, Labour's positioning in recent times on trans rights has been decidedly anti-women.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm also not surprised by the revelations of misogyny within the Labour Party. That doesn't come as any surprise to me either, Mike.
No, it really doesn't. But, you know, people will say, oh, but Keir Starmer dealt with it very well, he dealt with it quickly. Well, he didn't really, because these are messages that have gone back several years, and surely somebody in that WhatsApp group should have noticed what was being said and been appalled by it and told someone.
No, absolutely, and I think that what it really shows, this Labour government is very quickly becoming a car crash government, in my view.
It is.
There's so many problems have emerged, and of course there's very serious questions to ask in terms of Labour's competence, in terms of how it governs the country. But this is about the kind of behaviour and attitudes which exist within the Labour Party under Sir Keir Starmer's leadership. As opposition leader, he promised this politics of duty, of service, serving the British people, all British people. And for me, he's fallen well short of that. I think that when you have things like Allygate, for example, all these scandals over donors and the money that the party has received and the way that money has been used by the party leader and also the deputy leader, Angela Rayner, I'm not seeing much of a politics of integrity here, unfortunately.
No, I don't think they have any integrity, and the fact that they keep telling us they have makes it even more galling that they pretend that they have. I mean, let's have a look at Angela Rayner. She was talking over the weekend about many things. She was put up for the first time in a while, and you can see why they don't do it very often. She was on Laura Kunsberg, basically, and they discussed the criticism that Keir Starmer has been facing and whether he's actually able to do the job, because she was supposedly quoted in a book as saying he couldn't run a bath. Check this out.
He's his own worst critic.
He would be, yeah, absolutely.
But a new book reports that you said he couldn't run a bath. Did you say that?
Well, I'm not, you know, there's a lot of things that were said in that book that I don't recognise, to be honest.
So
and
did you not say that?
And it's tittle tattle, so I don't recognise what was said in that book.
But that's not tittle tattle. That's what the woman who's now the Deputy Prime Minister is reported to have said about the now Prime Minister.
Sure, and there was lots of other things that people have said about me or anyone else, and no, I don't recognise ever saying that to anybody. But we all have frustrations when we're at work sometimes, and I'm sure people have been frustrated with me at work sometimes.
It's not really saying she didn't say it, is it?
No, it's not a straightforward denial, put it that way.
Right.
And I think it really shows that the Labour Party, and I think it's also the case with the Conservative Party, to be fair, very susceptible to these kind of personal rivalries, which undermine organisational cohesion, that kind of unity that you need to govern the country effectively.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it comes to that politics of integrity. Of course, there's frustrations in the workplace, but I think the fact that she can't issue an outright denial there is concerning in itself.
Well, exactly right. And certainly that book, Get In, which I think is a pretty accurate description of the infighting that went on before they they got into Downing Street and after. You know, it paints a picture of a very shall we say, you know, unruly organisation, which is not really run by anyone. You know, first everyone thought Sue Gray was going to be the woman in charge. She was the architect of the first 100 days. Then it turns out that even before they got in, she and Morgan McSweeney were at it like two cats in a sack. You know, basically couldn't agree on anything, couldn't even work together in the same office, so they had to be in separate buildings, right? Then she gets in to Downing Street and decides she's in charge of Downing Street. He then spends the first, you know, 2-3 months trying to get rid of her. You know, it's the one thing it points to is that the one man who's not in charge of it all, in any way, shape or form, is Keir Starmer.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's why that's a huge reason as to why his approval ratings are so low.
Right.
He doesn't come across as a man who's in control. And I think that's a very serious concern in itself.
It's a massive problem. And also we learned over the weekend that he was upset that the BBC was going to discover that he was getting paid less money than Sue Gray, and he asked one of his aides to try and get the BBC not to publish the story. Now, I mean, that's the instinct of a dictator. It's not the instinct of a democrat, is it?
No, absolutely not. And I think that I've seen a great deal of joyless authoritarianism from this Labour government. But I also think it's a matter of priorities. We have so many social, economic and cultural and indeed political problems in the country. And the fact that the Prime Minister is focusing on issues like this, ultimately looking, this kind of information can't be released in the public domain over his personal pay against one of his advisors. I think that it really shows that he needs to get his priorities in order.
Right, absolutely right. And the problem for him is that, you know, in every area where he's trying to do something, it's not working. You know, the illegal migration, the new migrant bill's not going to make any difference. You know, they might be clamping down on you know, car washes and nail bars and arresting more people, but they won't be able to deport them. We've seen this ridiculous story about the Albanian who can't be deported because his son doesn't like the chicken nuggets they make outside of Britain. I mean, it's complete nonsense. Front page of the Times has got a story saying state schools are now not got any places for the numbers coming out of the private system, which we already knew was going to be the case. Their main front page headline: businesses are cutting jobs and slowing recruitment last month at levels not seen in over a decade. We haven't even hit April yet, which is when all the national insurance increases come in. Pubs are going to close at a rate of knots. You know, the economy's going to tank, and it's just going to get worse, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I'll start with illegal immigration. The Labour's motto was smash the gangs. That simply wasn't going to be enough.
Well, it just looks stupid now, doesn't it?
It looks very silly. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you want to tackle people smuggling infrastructures, of course you do. But ultimately, what the UK has to do, has to look at its relationship with existing international human rights conventions and refugee treaties. Yeah. That's what it has to do if you want to be really serious about ending illegal immigration. And I think we also have to look at border security and the access that illegal migrants have to benefits and the degree of state-sponsored accommodation that they benefit from as well. Have to look at all these areas. And in terms of the state schools, the policy, the VAT policy for private schools, it was just mindless class envy. Now, listen, I come from a predominantly working class town in Luton. Yeah. I went to a state school, but I want private schools to thrive, and some of them actually provide lavish scholarships, which do great things in terms of social mobility for many working class young people.
Yeah, and they also help an awful lot of children with learning difficulties, and they get grants from councils to go there. And the point is that also for those people who can afford to pay to send their children there, it alleviates that pressure in the state school system because it means that, you know, there's more space for those people who can't afford it. So the whole idea, again, as you said, it's all about class envy. It's all about making a point. It's all about, you know, punishing the toffs who they think go to these private schools, when in fact they couldn't be further from the truth. As usual, they've got it completely wrong. Nobody's not going to Eton, you know, which costs about 50 grand a year because their parents are loaded. But there will be plenty of people not going to a lot of the smaller private schools who were just about managing to put them in there.
No, absolutely, and I know for a fact there's many working class Muslim families who prefer sending their children to fee-paying schools, which tend to be lower fees because they want them to have a more traditional education because they're worried about some of the radical cultural liberalism which has infected some of our mainstream schools.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think on top of that, you made such a good point that you have children, young people with special educational needs who receive great help and assistance of private schools. So I think that it's a mindless policy which I think will do more harm than good for many working class families in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely right. And one other thing, going back to this Andrew Gwynn story, rather ironic that the government is currently looking at ways of, seeing what you're actually writing on encrypted forums in social media. One of the things that he wants Apple to look at is whether what you write privately to somebody can be seen by the government.
No, absolutely. I think that there's, in my view, I think that the Labour government is going about, healing state-citizen relations. It doesn't seem to be doing a very good job of that at all. I think you saw how it managed the Southport atrocity, for example. I think that we have very serious problems there in terms of the relationship between the people and their government. And I think that more generally there's very strong authoritarian tendencies which are very much coming to the fore, which seriously concerns me, because I think already political trust is at an all-time low, and I think that the government should be looking at actually rebuilding ties with its own citizens as opposed to undermining their rights through authoritarian measures.
Yeah, absolutely right. Rakib, great to talk to you as ever. Rakib Hassan, political commentator. Thanks very much indeed. One from Alan in Merseyside. Labour political commentators were praising Starmer for acting quickly over Gwynn. Then what about Labour MP Oliver Ryan, who's the young MP, 29 years of age, who's also been caught up in this, has been said to have had apologised, but he's still apparently got the Labour whip. And one from Brian in Hebburn, who says, never mind liar Starmer taking an HIV test, he wants to take a personality test or maybe a truth test. Have a great day. That would be fun, wouldn't it, Brian? Imagine taking a personality test. He'd definitely fail that one. Ian is on WhatsApp. Have a look.
Morning, Mike. Just finished my nuggets, so I'm able to call you now. Ian Hemel-Hempstead. Looking at the Labour MPs with the offensive messages, the precedents have been set for actually prosecuting people. Ex-Met officers back in December of 23, 6 of them were actually sentenced to jail time, which was suspended for offensive messages in a WhatsApp group, misogynistic, racist. Sounds a lot like what's going on with the Labour Party at the moment. The precedent's there for public servants. Let's go.
Absolutely right. This is the thing, Ian. This is the trouble with people like Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper. They set out a load of rules and then they trap their own people, because their own people are the misogynists, their own people are the racists, their own people are the anti-Semites. They said they got them all out of the Labour Party. Well, apparently they didn't. Not according to these WhatsApp messages, I'm afraid. 0344 499 1000. Harry Cole coming next from The Sun.
Donald Trump has ruled out deporting Prince Harry from the US, claiming the Duke of Sussex already has enough problems with his wife.
And yes, he's obviously made a dig at Meghan and saying that's his big problem. But I think it's also saying we don't need to give the king any problems. He's trying to recover from cancer. You know, William's obviously got his, with his father and his wife both in recovering from cancer. We've got to just say he's here now. Put a line under it, but wish him luck through with his wife.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:22. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Harry Cole, disclosed from The Sun, is here. Just before we talk to him, let's get a voice note from John.
Morning, Mike. John in Glasgow. This morning I would just like to thank Sir Keir Starmer and the rest of the Labour Party for preparing for government for the 14 years they were in opposition and fully costing every single penny that this country's got, because if they hadn't done such a sterling job, just imagine the state we would be in.
Yeah, just imagine how bad it would be. Luckily, we've got some evidence that he was prepared for government. Just have a look at this.
We've prepared this party for government. We've prepared all of our departments for government. If we are privileged to come in to serve our country, it will be public service for me, as it always has been, not self-entitlement.
Yeah. Didn't quite turn out like that, did it? Harry Cole is here. Harry, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
So, it'll be government of service, apparently, if we're privileged to get in. I do this it's starting to get boring. You're probably getting bored listening to me now. Every week I come in and I go, surely there won't be another bad story. You know, sure enough, Saturday night, boom, there it goes. Andrew Gwynn resigns, or is fired, or is suspended, or whatever. And now we've got another young MP who's in the fray. It's a pretty big scandal, this one, isn't it? I mean, wishing your voters dead, making anti-Semitic jokes about people who look a bit Jewish, you know, having a go at Diane Abbott, Bernie Grant, you know, black people in general. I mean, what's going on?
It's not a great look, is it? And also a complete gift to your political opponents, really. Yeah. Elections in a couple of months' time, and he's saying "F your bins," which I suspect will be on a fair few Tory Reform Lib Dem leaflets, posters across the counties as parts of the country go to the polls in May. I mean, bins couldn't be a more toxic political issue for lots of voters, especially in local elections, and now we know what they really think. But exactly. On a slightly serious note, I mean, there is a feeling in government that because the talent pool was so low, because the number of people really when the Labour won the election who had actually been MPs before, that they could draw from the ministers from, meant that actually some duds did get through. Some people that perhaps probably weren't quite up to the calibre of the job have slipped through. And we've seen that in some of these resignations that have happened so far, or sackings so far from the government. And I think in the lower ministerial ranks level, I think Number 10 are plotting a bit of a clear out probably after those local elections in May, and they'll try and bring in some younger, newer, fresher faces who perhaps might be better at these jobs.
You say that, but then Oliver Ryan was one of those younger, fresher faces, and presumably he's going to be suspended later on today, is he?
Well, he's got a meeting with the chief whip. Imagine coffee without biscuits, that one. But what it comes down to, this wasn't like a group of mates, really. It wasn't like a safe space for someone to rant or vent with their pals. This was a group of Labour councillors, activists, and local Labour bigwigs. So it was in all intents and purposes a work environment. Yeah. And the fact that no one called him out for, like, as you say, identifying someone for sounding a bit Jewish or something like that, really is almost as bad as the person that said it. So lots of things for this young Labour councillor, and it seems to me that young Labour MP, it seems to me, look, they've all fallen out, and you know, that's why it was splashed across a...
And they've all started stitching each other, a bit like Angela Rayner yesterday. I mean, she was asked about Keir Starmer and whether or not she ever said he couldn't run a bath, and she didn't really deny it, did she?
She didn't deny it at all. I love this new phrase that's crept into to ministers when they're on TV. Oh, I don't recognise that. Well, okay. What does that actually mean?
Right.
What you're saying is you did it, but you don't. Maybe you're quibbling with one or two words rather than the broad thrust of it.
Yes.
And the other one I love at the moment now is when they just go, "Well, I haven't seen the details of that."
Yes.
Well, if you haven't seen the details, why are you on television talking about it?
Exactly.
Go away, read the details, come back, and then answer the questions.
Yeah, I saw another Labour MP yesterday hiding behind the old, there's an inquiry, so I don't really want to prejudice that. So
Well, Boris Johnson invented that one.
Yeah, I can't really say.
Boris are pretty good at that one.
I can't really say anything because, I think we should wait until the outcome of the inquiry. Absolute nonsense. Let's talk about your column, though, because you've written about Nigel Farage and the threat of reform. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on here, isn't there? There's people saying things which might not be true. Farage and Reform came out the weekend and said, under no circumstances will we make any kind of deal with Boris Johnson or with the Conservative Party. But do you think that that's not necessarily completely and utterly true?
I think the leadership of both parties have probably got their hands pretty clean on this and can realistically say, look, we're going to fight each other, Tories versus Labour versus Conservatives, and they can say that. But behind the scenes and in pubs and clubs and corridors of power, there is a growing, almost overwhelming sense that something must be done in terms of a pact between the Conservatives and Reform. Now, Reform's saying, why would we have a pact with those guys when they cocked everything up for so long? And then the Conservatives are looking at these polls. Another one out at the weekend by JL Partners that had basically the Tories making a little bit of gain, which would take them back to where they sort of were in 1997. But Reform with 100 seats, basically triggering panic stations on both sides of the aisles. Labour, obviously, they're doing lots of stuff on immigration today. They're going to go harder on Farage, having really treated him with kid gloves for the first few months. They're really going to go for his jugular because it's their seats, it's their majority that most of those 100 Reform seats will be coming from. So it really is a matter of survival for this government to take on Reform. And at the same time, it's a battle of survival for Kemi Badenoch because no way she's going to survive longer than through next year if she continues to be in third place in the polls behind a different right-wing party and the government still. So she really needs to do something to sort of counter Reform. But the problem for the Tories is a pact. It's not in their gift. It's not for them to decide. It's for Reform to decide. And I suspect the price that Nigel Farage would demand for a coalition after the election to try and kick out Labour, if the polls do look like it's going to be a three-way split with the Conservatives and the Reform perhaps able to form a government. Now, it isn't going to be the Conservatives leading that. It's going to be Nigel Farage. His price is Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, indeed. I'm not sure they're clever enough inside the Tory party or indeed in government to take on Nigel Farage and Reform, because the more they attack him, I mean, look what they've come up with this weekend. They've come up with these adverts to make them look as if they're being tough on immigration, and they've basically coloured them the colour of Reform colours. Yeah. As if that somehow is going to fool everybody into thinking this is Reform saying Labour's doing a good job. I assume that's what they're trying to prove.
I mean, voters can see through this sort of stuff. It's a little bit patronising. Some of the stuff on the NHS as well, I think they've been pushing on Farage. It's quite a tired old playbook. We've known for years that Nigel Farage has said a few things about perhaps the NHS not being the most efficiently funded model in the world.
He's not wrong, is he?
Well, exactly, but I mean, it hasn't hurt his advance yet, so there's no reason to think it would again. And I think dressing stuff up in, dressing up, Labour adverts in Reform colours, people are going to see through that pretty quickly. But I do think the government's right to be showing, it is kind of out the Trump playbook of, look, the deportations are up. They're not getting the credit for it. People don't believe them because the trust in politics is so low now that Labour say, oh, deportations are up 23%. Everyone goes, yeah, right. But actually, if I do think it's probably quite effective to see actually what is being done, and as a deterrent to people coming here as well. Look, this is what happens. You will be put on a plane and you will be sent.
But I always say, if you're using percentages, you don't want to tell us the real numbers, and that's what people see through as well. And as for the NHS, I mean, most people in this country now, if Labour still think anyone other than sort of hardline Labourites think the NHS is doing a great job anywhere, then they're going to be very quickly surprised that people have lost faith in it completely. Yeah,
it kind of that sort of stuff worked against the Tories in the late 90s and through the noughties. But I just think the debate has moved on. Everyone who's ever used the NHS knows it's had its massive failures. especially post-COVID. And the problem is, the more money we throw at it, the more they come back and say, oh, we've spent that, we need more. So that debate perhaps is coming in a way that it hasn't been. It has been a sacred cow for too long and for so long in British politics. But actually, as the bills go up and as the country becomes more bust, I think people will be more willing to have a discussion about the NHS. But I mean, everyone agrees it's going to be free at the price of entry. But what does that actually mean in reality?
Yeah, exactly right. I always say, well, we could have a long conversation about this, but I know you've got to go. Harry, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Harry
Always back. Thank you.
Column in The Sun today, page 10. The price of a deal with the Tories, Farage as Prime Minister. Well, Richard Tice is here, coming up next. We'll find out from him what the price of that would be. I suspect Reform don't want anything to do with the Tories, because that's what they've said. Let's get a voice note from Sean.
Morning, Mike. Sean in Leicester here. Not getting deported because your son doesn't like chicken nuggets in their home country. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm losing it.
I mean, it is incredible, isn't it? It's hard to believe that that's actually a real story. How about this from Stuart? A summary of just how bad Starmer's appointments are. Hermer, Attorney General, has advised people how to sue Britain. Labour MPs wishing their constituents dead. Ed Mad Miliband in charge of energy security. Reeves, the economy destroyer, responsible for growth. Lammy, Foreign Secretary, verbally abusing the President of the largest economy in the world. I could go on and on and on. You didn't mention Tulip Siddiq, the anti-corruption minister, being investigated for corruption by the Bangladeshi authorities. You also didn't mention this latest character who obviously has got problems now keeping his job. He's about to go and see the chief whip, this young MP, Oliver Ryan, I think his name is. Nobody's ever heard of him. He's going to be out of a job soon. Good. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:35. The sun is up, but you wouldn't know it really. It looks a bit grim out there, I have to say. Along with the outlook for the economy, along with the outlook for Keir Starmer, along with the outlook for Oliver Ryan, MP, 29 years of age. He's only been an MP for a short period of time. He's hopefully not going to be one for very much longer. But, you know, they'll suspend him from the Labour Party for taking part in this ghastly WhatsApp group. And then no doubt they'll sort of sneak him back in. But let's get a quick voice there. Richard Tice is here. Very good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Daz on Labour MPs.
Morning, Mike. I wonder if you could just start off a campaign to get the word honourable, right honourable, dropped when those clowns address each other in the House of Commons, because it just disgusts me every time I hear it. So somebody would have stood up about Andrew Gwynn, the honourable gentleman. There's nothing honourable about this shower, any of them. that should just stand up and say, oh, the Member of Parliament for wherever, honourable and right honourable. They're absolutely disgusting, the lot of them, and I include the Tories in that, all of them. Great show, mate.
Daz, thank you very much indeed. Surely you don't include Richard Tice in that.
Well, I'm hoping for
I'm
hoping for a modest exemption.
You might get one
from Daz.
I think so.
For 5 of us.
I think so.
But I understand the sentiment of his anger, as I think do most people, which is just horror that these Labour MPs. I mean, they're sort of just proving what many people fear.
Yeah,
just shocking how
you can tell
how you can think some of those things, let alone type it.
Type them, yeah, but this is the thing. I mean, we've said for so long on this show and on this station, you know, they used to call the Tories the nasty party. Everybody knows who the nasty people are in politics, and it's the left-wingers. They are the most horrific, ghastly, prejudicial, you know, mean-spirited, bigoted people. They don't. The Labour Party clearly still has a problem.
It's a hard left approach to life, and they're as nasty about and to each other as to everybody else. They're just not very nice people.
No,
and
they're clearly still
another reminder.
There's quite a bit of anti-Semitism running through a lot of that stuff as well.
Regrettably, horrifically, there is. But I sense it in the chamber.
Yeah.
Like when I stood up at PMQs last week, and I talked about the fact that Emily Damari had been held by Hamas in UNRWA facilities, and that UNRWA's riddled with Hamas sympathisers. Lots of the Labour MPs and the pro-Gaza lot sitting behind me, they started to hiss and heckle, and I'm afraid there are plenty of anti-Semites in the House of Commons. It's despicable.
That is despicable, and it's meant to be illegal, isn't it? I mean, this is why a lot of people are suggesting that Manchester Police should get involved. They have now got involved. I don't know whether they're going to prosecute Andrew Gwynn for hate speech, but you could certainly make a case that there are people sitting in prison right now who said similar things on various different social media outlets, and they were smashed by Keir Starmer's legal arm, if you like, and put in prison for a long time.
What's going to be interesting is whether or not actually he survives as a independent MP, or whether the pressure now forces him to step down. It will be, let's wait and see. My hunch is that he'll try and sort of hang on.
These people don't generally do they? I mean, I'd like to see Mike
most of them are unemployable outside.
Well, that's true. I mean, Mike Ainsbury pleaded guilty to assault, hasn't been sentenced yet, but surely he should leave as well, shouldn't he?
Well, and I think that probably will be the case depending on what the sentencing is, but it's more than unsavoury, and I think we all know who are the nasty people in the House of Commons.
Just listening to what Harry Cole had to say there, he's talking about Nigel Farage leading the country, becoming Prime Minister. A lot of people are talking about that, funnily enough. They weren't talking about it this time last year, but now it's a real possibility. The question is it as part of a combined right-wing party, or is it part of...
No,
I know that's your answer, but is there no point... You know, you are a politician, after all, and now you are.
No, I'm a businessman who's come into the world of politics to try to help save this country from the lunacy.
But how many times have we been promised things that we're definitely not doing that? Oh, absolutely not. That's right, absolutely right out of the question. I know you're not like that, but...
We're not like that, and we're saying to the great British people, actually, under a first-past-the-post system, yes, it's difficult, but if you want to rescue the country, if you want to stop it going bust, then you've got to vote for the only party that is capable of doing that with all our different policies, and that's why we're soaring in the polls. And the truth is that we're now either first or first equal. We're way ahead of the Tories. We've got the momentum upwards. The Tories are sinking, soggy, struggling into the mire, and they're heading south. I mean, there was one poll last week that had them below 20%. I think they're heading south in terms of popularity. Their bank balance is heading south fast as well. And I think very soon people are going to be realising that actually a Tory vote is splitting the vote.
Well, that's right. I mean, the JL Partners poll that he was referring to was Reform on 102 seats, which is a pretty good place to be, given that you've only been in for 7 months.
Yes, I mean, in terms of progress, but actually that is very different to another one that had us on over 200 seats. Look, first past the post, the leverage effect on it is very, very significant when you get above certain levels. I think people are realising that actually the state of the country requires serious, bold, courageous reform, and you're only going to get that from the party that is called Reform. And all this talk of, you know, us doing a deal with bringing Boris back is absolute twaddle. We confirmed it in our rally yesterday down in Wiltshire.
with absolute clarity. We put out a press statement. I'm afraid it's the odd journalist who's short of something to write for the week, and so dreams up a load of twaddle.
I'm not having you insult Harry Cole like that. I'm have to defend his honour here.
You defend his honour, that's absolutely fine. But the stuff in the Mail on Sunday yesterday, I mean, the Mail is sort of trying to pretend that we don't exist as they defend the indefensible Tories as to what they did to the country. And
I think they're a bit confused at the Mail. They're not quite sure what to do, because the Tories are facing an extinction event. I think that's right. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I saw a Tory, I can't even remember his name, he was in shadow secretary to the Treasury or something yesterday on Laura Kunsberg. And he was useless, completely useless, and was completely deluded about reform, and sort of talked about how nobody cares about polls, you know, during an election cycle that's so far away. Oh, really? Well, we'll see about that.
It's about momentum, and it's about confidence and about belief. And at the moment, I mean, the country financially is in a terrible state. We've got more figures coming out this Thursday. It's getting worse. I think the figures on Thursday are going to be significantly worse. People in the private sector I'm talking to, I mean, everybody is they're holding back on recruitment, and they're having to let people go. Investment in capital investment is being slashed significantly. We're getting poorer. It's as simple as that, and we've got to turn this round.
Well, front page of the Times today saying that, you know, businesses are now hiring people at a lower rate, a slower rate than nobody's ever seen since about a decade ago. And you know, we haven't even got to April yet when all the
it hasn't even started.
Yeah,
and this is it's going to be very difficult, and the markets are watching very closely. I mean, Rachel Reeves has completely and utterly destroyed any confidence, and people's bills are going up. I challenged Ed Miliband in the House last week. When are our bills going to come down with the promises of more renewables? Or are you just going to admit, Mr. Miliband, that actually they're going to go up permanently? And all he did was just sort of launch an attack at me, because the bills will never come down under net stupid zero. They're only ever going up. It's getting worse.
Well, we made that bloke Jürgen Meyer Plank of the Week. You know, the guy who runs GP Energy. They don't make anything. They don't sell anything. They don't buy anything. They haven't got an office. They haven't got a website. I said to him, when are you going to... Well, he was interviewed by Sky, rather. They said, when are you going to get the bills down, and when are people going to hit £300? That's not in my remit, he said. Nothing to do with me.
I mean, just absurd. Look, the bills are going up. The April energy price cap is going to be about 5% higher than the January number. That means it'll be about 16% higher than last July. This is hundreds of pounds after tax for ordinary folk up and down the country. We've been sold a pup. We've been misled. We've been lied to. And it's going to get more expensive. And we've got to stop this rot. And it's really serious. It's getting even more serious. Now I read in the papers this morning, even beer bottles are under threat by net stupid zero. The Great British Beer Bottle.
Right.
I mean, it's part of who we are, isn't it, Mike?
Absolutely.
I mean, we've held...
Well, they're going to start attaching the bottle top to the...
No, apparently we can't have the glass because it's too heavy, even though, of course, it's much more sustainable than plastic bottles. They want... And it doesn't taste as good in a tin. So, I mean, it's getting ever more serious.
Well, here's another serious one. Front page of the Telegraph today. The true cost of Britain of Sir Keir Starmer's Chagos Islands deal, 52 billion quid. Now, this is what Nigel Farage says.
This is right, because the original price was £9 billion, but now it turns out it's going to be inflation-linked. So if you apply to 90 million a year, just a simple 3% annual inflation over 99 years, you get up to over £50 billion. That's basically 50 years' worth of winter fuel payments. So what we announced yesterday, and we will keep reinforcing it, is that, I mean, this deal actually, I think it's an illegal deal, because when Mauritius got independence from the UK in 1968, we paid Mauritius £3 million as part of an agreement for them to relinquish any claims they may have, correct or incorrect, over the Chagos Islands. So that deal was done back then.
Right.
So they're in breach of that agreement.
That's a binding agreement.
That's a binding agreement that they're in breach of by claiming that they still own it. So what we will do is we will stop any future payments. When we win the next election, we will seek reimbursement of any payments that this Labour government has made, and we will see what Mauritius says about that. But nothing is off the table. If necessary, visa restrictions. If necessary, we'll look at stopping direct flights to Mauritius. The UK is the second biggest contributor to tourism in Mauritius. So there's things we can do. I think Mauritius need to wake up and realise that what they are doing is patently wrong.
But they're being aided and abetted, though, by the Labour government.
And the people negotiating the deal. And you have to wonder, what is going on here?
Right.
I mean, why? You have to ask the simple question, why would you do the worst ever property deal in the history of mankind, giving up a valuable freehold, and rather than them pay us, even though we own it in the first place, we seem to be paying them and asking for nothing in the whole thing is completely and utterly, it's so insane, you have to wonder, well, there must be something else.
Yeah.
What are we missing?
Right.
What money is being handed to whom, where, why? Where's the transparency of this? I am increasingly suspicious
I think you should
that
ask
all
Lord,
is not what it seems.
Lord Hermer, who seems to know an awful lot about things that are done behind the scenes and who seems to be involved in all sorts of ways.
It's not right, and we're going to stop it, and we're going to tear this deal up.
OK, Richard Tice, thank you very much indeed. The Honourable Richard Tice, I should say, despite what we were told earlier. Let's get a voice note from Sue on reparations.
From Chelmsford here. Surely the British people, over this business of reparations to the Caribbean, could use the old chicken nugget defence, or even the 3-year statute of limitations on COVID regs that Starmer used. Why have we got to pay for something we didn't do decades and decades ago?
Absolutely right. Why on earth would you want to? The problem with David Lammy is that he has been caught on camera previously saying that he's a person from the Caribbean and he wants to reconnect with the Caribbean, and he said, we will not go down, we will not give up, we want our reparations. Well, I'm sorry, you're from Tottenham, mate, aren't you? Let's talk to Nigel Huddleston MP, co-chair of the Conservative Party. He's down in Westminster for us. Nigel, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
This government stumbles around from bad to worse, doesn't it? I mean, this morning we've got Oliver Ryan MP, who's apologised for being part of this ghastly WhatsApp group, which has claimed yet another minister who's been suspended from the government. If this is how some Labour MPs think, surely they are unfit to be in government, aren't they?
Yes, I think they are, and you're right. Actually, every single week there seems to be yet another major error from this government. Now, many of us suspected that they weren't competent before the last election, and they're certainly proving that, and it's our job to hold them to account for all their errors, and certainly they're making them. And in terms of the WhatsApp conversations, you know, it's bad that they existed, but more importantly, it's bad that it's even in the heads of those people that they think those kind of comments are appropriate about their own constituents, about elderly people. You know, it shows the utter disdain, unfortunately, of Labour MPs to segments of the population who are under attack, not only online and in WhatsApp groups and comments, but actually in policies as well, winter fuel and so on. So you're right, actually, there's plenty of areas to attack Labour, but also it's our job to make sure that we present ourselves as an alternative as the major party of opposition. And we'll do that a lot, in the chamber and outside.
Well, there's a lot of talk about that this weekend, isn't there? Because, of course, reform are very much the flavour of the month. Nigel Farage has just come out as we speak with some breaking news, promising to reverse the inheritance tax on farmers. Farmers are descending upon Westminster this very day. They should be, if they're not there now, they'll be on their way from North London. The position, of course, that the Reform Party has is that they stand full square with the farmers, and they're often seen with them at their demos. Is there anybody from the Tory party going to be with them today?
Well, actually, I'm very glad that Reform have caught up with Conservative Party policy, as articulated by Kemi quite a while ago, that we would reverse the agriculture property relief and also the business property relief. We announced that a while ago, because that's the kind of thing we do when we are in opposition and His Majesty's opposition. We make clear the policy stance versus Labour. And so actually, I'm glad that they have now followed us, but let's be in no doubt. I mean, there was a picture where I'm standing now, there was pictures with me, Kemi, lots of people, a cow a few weeks ago, lots of farmers, lots of tractors standing shoulder to shoulder with farmers. And we don't just do that in Westminster, right across the country. This weekend we were out with farmers. A few weeks ago with both councillors, with MPs, we are standing shoulder to shoulder with farmers, because you're absolutely right. It's yet again the Labour Party attacking people who generally don't vote for them, and also showing they don't understand the countryside. They don't understand the rural areas. Farmers do not make much money. The average ROI, return on investment, is 0.5%. They're not in it for the money. They're in it because they're custodians of the landscape. It's in their DNA, it's in their blood. Labour do not get that. We get that as Conservatives, and we represent large parts of the rural areas of this country. So not only today, but historically, over the last few weeks and months, we've stood shoulder to shoulder with farmers. Anybody who wants to join us, please do so.
And what do you make of this poll that came out yesterday from JL Partners, which basically says Labour would lose 211 seats, going back to where they were on 200. Basically, the Reform Party would pull in about 102 seats, and Conservatives would recover a little bit, but to a 1997 level of about 190 seats.
Yeah. Well, I think this is important. We've always said that our recovery, our renewal as a party, as Kemi has articulated, would be a long process. But what's important, and that poll is interesting, as are other polls, if you'd said to me 7 months ago, Nigel, you're going to be chair of the Conservative Party and we're going to put you on par, or even in a couple of polls ahead, and, you know, you'd be gaining seats. You know, this just a few months after the biggest defeat we'd have, I wouldn't have believed them. And the reason is that we are holding this government to account. We are pointing out the errors and the positive Conservative message. Now, reform is a challenge, there's no doubt about it. But they are a different party to the Conservative Party. We uphold Conservative values and principles. Reform want to destroy the Conservative Party. That is a very different proposition. Our purpose is to get rid of this shambolic Labour government, get them out and replace them with a Conservative government. That's our goal, that's our focus. And we're seeing in some of the polls that actually that's getting attractive now to the British population. But we're aware, just because a few months ago people booted us out does not mean they've fallen back in love with us. We've got to earn that trust and that confidence over a period of time. But we're a serious party of government. We want to govern again, not just protest.
But one of the reasons people became disenchanted with the last Conservative government was it wasn't very conservative. You know, net zero is not a Conservative belief, neither is the immigration, mass immigration that's taken place. You know, and until you change your views on those two issues, I don't think anybody's going to be convinced that you are a Conservative government. I mean, would you be prepared to ditch net zero as an idea?
Well, Kemi's been quite robust on net zero. She says she's not a climate change sceptic, she is a net zero sceptic. We're under new leadership now. We've learnt the lessons of the election. We took a beating. We understand why. We need to show the public we understand why. And we're under new leadership, and I can tell you, the policies that we are developing, we've got activity on policy commissions going on. They are going to be founded on proper, sound, Conservative values and principles. Tomorrow, it's 50 years since Margaret Thatcher became the leader of the Conservative Party, and a lot of the values that she articulated about low taxes, small government, personal responsibility, security through sound money, these are things that are core Conservative values. We admit we moved too far away from some of those values when we were in government, partly because of circumstances. Difficult to be the party of low taxation when you spent £400 billion on the pandemic, securing jobs and livelihoods, but also people quite rightly said you didn't focus enough. We should have moved quicker on tax cuts, and we should have done more on migration. There is no doubt about that.
Okay.
We apologise
to the
British public for letting them down, and we have learnt our lessons.
Okay, so would you reverse then the electric car mandate?
Well, in terms of the specific policies here, this is exactly what Kemi has said, by the way. She's not into making announcements until we've thought them through and the consequences and the potential unintended consequences. So over the next few months and years, you will get a really robust, sound, credible alternative with lots of policies coming out, but they will be not sound bites, they will be credible policies we'll implement. So the details will come out over the next few months and years, and that's appropriate because it's 4 years until the next election. God knows what shape the economy will be in after this lot have been in power for the last 4 years, and trying to make policy announcements now, including in particular things that have got any financial aspect, would be for the birds. It wouldn't be responsible, and responsible government and responsible opposition is our trademark.
Right.
That's what we want to make sure
policy on immigration. She did make some policy on immigration just the other day. But
yes, we did. She's made some announcements last week. Yeah.
But that's not premature and dangerous. And listen, Nigel, we've got to run. Nigel Huddleston, MP, co-chair of the Conservative Party. We've got to go because we're just out of time. A voice note from Phil.
Mike, Phil from Hertfordshire. Am I wrong in saying that when the government is formed, they have to go to see the King to ask permission to form a government. If that's the case and the King has to give permission, surely the King has the power to dissolve it.
Well, now that's an interesting question. I think the last time anything like that happened, we had the Civil War. So I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. I suspect that because of the way that the King sits in power as the head of state is slightly different. Technically, he's probably got the power, but I don't think he would do it. Good thought, though. We'll get a constitutional expert on to see whether that might be a route we could go down. Phil there asking if the King could just dissolve the government. It'd be brilliant, wouldn't it, if he could. It's 8:56.
Let's try that again. Fix the foundation. Here, stop. Let me try that. Okay, bear with me, I'll try it. Fix the foundation. By Jove, I think he's got it. He's got it. That is, so he was taught to speak like a nasally challenged dork. And anyway, he should get his money back. He still sounds terrible. Fix the foundation. My government. Anyway, time for a bird.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. Visible Oakshot's coming up in the next hour. We've got plenty more to do. Not much time to do it in, I'm afraid. A lot of waffle from Nigel Huddleston there, Mike, but he didn't say the Tories would actually ditch net zero, did he? No, of course he didn't. One here from Gary who says the Labour Party are only happy in opposition. They are a disaster and a one-term government. Clueless bunch of activists who can't shake off their vile militant traits, says Gary in Northampton. And here, one from Stephen says preferring our nuggets to foreign nuggets a legitimate claim for asylum now. Stephen in London. Well, apparently so. A lot of people talking about chicken nuggets this morning. Apparently it's a reason why you can't be deported, believe it or not. This is Talk. We'll see you after the news.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament.
and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in or far ball, slides it in. An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't know about these facts about the suspects in Southport?
I find it extraordinary that he wouldn't know. It seems that the public has not been told the truth.
No, there's nothing like an American election, I have to say. North Dakota has gone red, South Dakota's red, Texas is red.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason.
Bloomberg UK reporting Ukraine has made the first long-range missile strike inside
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 3 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock, when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be along. Isabel Oakeshott coming up very shortly as well to talk to us about a great many things, including some shoplifting that she witnessed recently. We're going to talk as well, of course, about the dire state of Labour MPs. At least one minister has been suspended, basically, Andrew Gwynn, for making vile comments on a WhatsApp group. Isabel knows a thing or two about WhatsApp groups, so she may be able to tell us exactly how that all got encrypted, but an awful lot of people were part of the WhatsApp group, including one Oliver Ryan, 29, MP for Burnley, who said he's very sorry. He's got a meeting with the Chief Whip apparently this morning, but he still hasn't been suspended as of yet. Maybe he will be, but certainly there was anti-Semitism in these messages. There was hatred of old people. At one point, Andrew Gwynn saying that he was wishing that pensioners would die. There's also some pretty racist stuff about Diane Abbott and about Bernie Grant as well, former Labour MP from North London. I mean, it's just hideous. The whole thing is ghastly. It tells you how they think. It tells you that they have not only absolute and utter disdain for the electorate, but they actually hate them. They don't like them. And as Richard Tice said, everybody knows that the left wing, particularly the hard left of the Labour Party, are just not very nice people. It's as simple as that. 0344 499 1000. If you've forgotten how to get in touch, here's how you do it.
Old Labour HQ, there was a bit of a bustle when they found out that, no, MPs haven't been battering the constituents. No, they've just been caught wishing that they were dead instead.
What is the world coming to? I can't believe this is actually happening. A guy cannot be deported who's a typical recidivist just because his son won't eat the chicken nuggets. You really can't make this stuff up.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm losing it.
Unbelievable stuff. That's the story, of course, on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. An Albanian criminal allowed to stay in Britain because his son will not eat foreign chicken nuggets. I kid you not. This is absolutely true. It is quite extraordinary, and it's only one of the crazy stories that's doing the rounds today. Another one of which is that state schools apparently don't have room for the private school kids who can't afford to go there anymore, as if we didn't tell you this would happen. We've also got a story saying you can't say able-bodied anymore. This is according to Visit Britain. You must say non-disabled. So if there's nothing wrong with you, if you don't have any kind of disability, you are not able-bodied, you are non-disabled. Absolutely unbelievable. We'll also talk a little bit about Prince Harry, of course, in this hour. And also, what about the church consecration business, right? We talked about this in the first hour of the show. Church of England says, apparently, that you can't use non-alcoholic wine or gluten-free bread for the body of Christ and the blood of Christ and all that. I thought it was a miracle, right? He made it from water. The wine's made from water, isn't it? So surely you could make it from non-alcoholic wine if you want to. It seems a bit mad to me. I don't want to get in trouble with the Christian fraternity, though, of course. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Absolutely right to say what we've been saying this morning, so many of you. One from Matt in Sedgeford. He says, off to Legoland today, chicken nuggets for lunch. You couldn't make it up, you couldn't script it. Look, watch out for the sexist Lego, though. Is it homophobic, isn't it, Legoland now, because the way the bricks go together? I don't know. Let's have a look at what Nigel Farage was doing this morning, because there's a big farmers' protest going on today. Thousands and thousands of tractors heading to London. Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, had this to say.
And from what I can see, Joe Public is getting behind the concept that the family farm should not be driven out of existence. So politically, I think we can win this. And what's really exciting is other groups are getting on board too. Because this IHT, it isn't just the farms that it hits, it's family businesses as well. In fact, inheritance tax, when you think about it, it's on money that we paid tax on already. The whole thing's monstrous. So I think the country now is going to come together with lots of different groups, and let's just stand up and say no to death taxes, full stop. End death taxes. They're wrong, they're immoral at every level.
Yep, and that's exactly where Reform are. I just had Nigel Huddleston on trying to make out that the Conservatives would also do away with it, but I don't remember Kemi Badenoch saying it. I'm sure she did, but whenever she says things, you don't remember her saying them. That's the problem, I would say, for them. Isabel Oakeshot's here, Talks International editor. Isabel, very good morning to you.
Morning. I couldn't agree more with Nigel about death taxes. They are so pernicious. We've just, in my family, we've just sold my mother's little flat in central London that she bought in the 1960s. Right. And it was amazing to see how much that was bought for back then, £6,000. Wow. The whole thing has just basically been sold to donate to this government, which really sticks in the throat given how they squander taxpayers' money. It is extraordinary, isn't it, that you know, they tax, as he says, the money more than once. That shouldn't be a legal possibility. I mean, surely to heavens. Same goes for pensions. Really. They shouldn't be taxing anything that's already been taxed once already. Yeah, no, it's awful. I think Reform would abolish inheritance tax, and you know, I do hold the Tories accountable on this, because way back before 2010 they promised to do big things on inheritance tax, and each and every year and every budget they failed to do so, and in fact made allowances even worse as inflation kicked in and thresholds weren't moved. So something has to give on this. Britain is actually a bit of an outlier on inheritance tax. I mean, France is very punitive on this, but in America, in many states, it doesn't exist at all, actually. Right. And in New Zealand and Australia, they scrapped it for the very reason that these farmers are protesting about, because its impact is to break up family farms. So they very quickly realised in Australia and New Zealand that if you impose these death duties on farmers and the children who inherit farmland, very quickly your production system is going to take a big hammering. Yeah, and they'll end up surely as well making it more possible for very wealthy people who don't really want to use the land for farms just to buy them up. Yes, that could well be an impact of it, people buying land speculatively. It just has any number of really sort of pointless side effects. You know, it's not as if this is going to raise a huge amount of money.
No.
You know, we talk about vast sums being sent to Mauritius for the Chagos Islands, you know, absolutely dwarfing any receipts from this completely ill-conceived farm inheritance tax levy. And, you know, this government just seems able to bandy around billions of figures quite casually when it comes to things like payments for Mauritius and opening conversations with the Caribbean about slavery reparations. And yet, on a point of principle, they bring in these measures against what they see as Tory voting, landowning toffs. And the reality is that most farmers are not making a great deal of money. Yes, there are a handful of farmers that do very well, but they are really a minority.
Well, it's the same as the story in the Times today, which I could have written 6 months ago, saying that state schools haven't got any room for the private school pupils that are coming out of private school because of the VAT. Well, any idiot could have seen that that's what would have happened. They seem surprised that it has.
Yeah, because they think that people who send their children to private school are absolutely dripping in money. And actually, very few parents who make these sacrifices do so easily. You know, the majority of parents I know that send their children to private schools really, really struggle to scrape those sums of money together because it comes out of taxed income. And higher rate taxpayers, who are the only ones who are going to be able to afford private schooling, are already taxed at effectively 50%. And so out of that, you're trying to pay school fees in the tens of thousands. And, you know, that's nobody's idea of a picnic. No wonder an awful lot of parents are, for them, this is existential when it comes to the private education choice. They just can't do it anymore.
No, of course. And let's talk a bit about Andrew Gwynn and Oliver Ryan, who's the next in the firing line, supposedly having a meeting with the Chief Whip this morning. He's probably going to be suspended from the party as well. But also, bigger problems for Keir Starmer than that, really. Angela Rayner appeared on the Laura Kuenssberg show yesterday. Laura Kuenssberg, by the way, who couldn't bring herself to make the suspension of a government minister one of the top 3 headlines of her show. She only talked about it when they went to look at what was in the papers, basically. But here's Angela Rayner supposedly defending the Prime Minister, saying that, you know, he's probably his own worst critic and he's probably OK.
He's his own worst critic?
He would be, yeah, absolutely.
But a new book reports that you said he couldn't run a bath. Did you say that?
Well, I'm not, you know, there's a lot of things that were said in that book that I don't recognise, to be honest.
So
and
did you not say that?
And it's tittle tattle, so I don't recognise what was said in that book.
But that's not tittle tattle. That's what the woman who's now the Deputy Prime Minister is reported to have said about the now Prime Minister.
Sure, and there was lots of other things that people have said about me or anyone else, and no, I don't recognise ever saying that to anybody. But we all have frustrations when we're at work sometimes, and I'm sure people have been frustrated with me at work sometimes.
Yes. Not exactly a denial, is it?
No, I don't recognise that. I mean, this is a classic device, isn't it? It's a non-denial. You know, people get fed up with this kind of clever language that politicians use to try to get themselves out of a hole, you know, and that is one of those classic phrases. It's used from Downing Street all the way down through departments to deal with anything that's a bit awkward, a bit uncomfortable, and anything that they just want to bat off.
Yes, exactly right. But, I mean, it's very clear that they don't get on terribly well. It's very clear from the book that basically she got the better of him when he tried to fire her after that Hartlepool by-election. And it's very clear that she's not somebody to be messed around with. And it's also very clear, I mean, there's a great picture of him on the front page of the Telegraph and the Times today, holding his sort of head in his hands, having just missed a penalty. I mean, it's an absolute gift, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the entire nation is holding their heads in their hands at this point. And I think Angela Rayner is formidable. I really do. I think she's an absolute firebrand. She's a kind of contemporary John Prescott. I think she's got tremendous spirit. I think she adds to the gaiety of the nation, but she is also, you know, a serious political operator. And as such, she's a threat to boring old Keir. I mean,
totally.
I won't like a single one of Angela Rayner's ideas or policies, but somehow I'd still prefer her to be in charge than Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I know. Well, almost anyone at this point, really.
At least it wouldn't be so boring.
Exactly. Almost anyone but him. Although we have got the Daily Star making a front page picture this morning as Biggles 2.0, because, of course, after all the hard times that they gave Rishi Sunak for his helicopter, he's run up £700,000 worth of private jet spending. It's incredible how hypocritical these people are.
Yeah, I mean, look, net zero only when it's convenient, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a bit about this Albanian, because we're going to get to a shoplifting story you want to tell me about in a minute. But, you know, the crime levels in this country have reached epic proportions. This guy, who is a recidivist criminal, a convicted criminal, a man who commits crime as a way of life, basically, not allowed to be sent back to Albania, to be deported there because his son doesn't like chicken nuggets unless they're made in Britain.
I mean, honestly, I just can't.
You're speechless.
I can't believe this crap. What is wrong with our country? You know, I'm just thinking right now of Donald Trump's administration and how they would literally say, we're just going to get rid of all this crap.
Yeah, right.
I tell you what, if we get a new government of the kind of political leanings that most of our listeners want, they will get rid of this crap. The problem here is these judges. You know, these judges, time and again, keep on thwarting what the British people want and what kind of policies the British people voted for. And it is a total insult to people that live here and pay their taxes that we have these rulings which continually seem to favour people who do the wrong thing. I genuinely don't understand where all this is coming from, because it cannot be what so-called human rights legislation was designed to do. No piece of human rights legislation on the planet was designed to protect a criminal's son, to safeguard their right to eat British-made chicken nuggets.
It's just,
really.
It is ridiculous, absolutely utterly ludicrous. But you know, it is the front page of the Telegraph, so we've got to mention it. Let's talk about your tweet. You sent one to Tesco's earlier. And what's the point of your security guards? I spotted a shoplifter. I pointed him out. Your guy let him saunter out with his pockets full. Have they answered you yet?
No, it is only 9:15. I have had an awful lot of other responses to that tweet, though, and people suggesting that the Tesco and other supermarket security guards aren't actually allowed to intercept or apprehend or in any way challenge shoplifters, in which case, what the hell is the point of them?
Yeah.
I mean, they're barely even acting as scarecrows, are they? I mean, look, this job is actually, in a sense, not that difficult. You know, I walked into Tesco in Vauxhall, on the embankment in central London last night, and I happened to walk in at the same time as somebody that I could tell instantly was very likely to be a shoplifter. They just had that look about them. They looked downtrodden, and I thought, yeah, I know this guy's going to shoplift, so how about I just hang back a little, but I'll just shadow him round the store. By the way, there were multiple staff on duty, you know, guy in a big high-vis jacket with security written on him, his little radio, another strapping great lad who could have provided any kind of assistance. I shadowed this downtrodden individual around the store, and sure enough, there he was, just putting some stuff in his pockets. I wanted to be absolutely sure that I was right. I knew I was right, and watched him casually head for the exit, at which point I pointed him out to the man in the yellow jacket whose actual job it is, supposedly, to stop shoplifting, and he just sort of looked really vague, allowed the guy to saunter out, and I said, look, it's your actual job to challenge shoplifting, isn't it? Otherwise, what's the point of you? What are you being paid for? And he sort of half wandered out of the store and then just drifted back in and said, oh, well, he's outside the shop premises now, so I can't do anything. Well, that is total and utter bollocks. Sorry for such strong language in the morning. But any one of us can make a citizen's arrest. You know, I could have done it. Perhaps I should have done it.
Yeah, but then you put yourself in danger as well, and it's not your job, is it? I mean, that's the problem here.
Well, the guy, it is his actual job. So presumably he's been trained in how to do it. Maybe he's got some safety equipment. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, there were a bunch of strapping young people in that store who could have provided some backup.
Sure.
And if we're not going to actually apprehend these people, then can we think of something else? You know, maybe there should be an announcement that goes out in shops saying, hello, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see in aisle 6 there's somebody filling their boots. Let's all stop him leaving the store.
Yeah.
You know, there must be more imaginative things we could do than just shrug and allow people to help themselves. And the thing is, you know, as with scarecrows, where birds eventually learn that the scarecrow is just a plastic little thing that does nothing, if security guards don't actually do their job, then more and more people are going to think, well, why don't I just not pay?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I was very shocked one day to go to my local Tesco's, which is in a different part of southeast London. And as I walked into the shopping area generally, which was outside of the Tesco actual shop, there were 3 Tesco security guards holding this guy down and trying to stop him from escaping. And it was quite a violent struggle that was going on. And they'd obviously taken the view that they were going to stop this guy. So it's nonsense to say that, you know, they never do it or they don't do it outside of the shop, because in this case it was outside of the shop. To be fair, I don't see it very often, and I'm not saying that your story therefore is unusual, because I'm sure that's what happens every single day. But you're right. Unless we start fighting back against the criminals will take over.
And I also think that every citizen has got a responsibility to call this stuff out. You know, most of us don't want to go and have a confrontation with somebody. And there is always that fear, are they going to pull out a knife?
Yeah.
But we can't all operate on the basis of the worst case scenario that might happen. And everybody who sees shoplifting should, at the very least, I think, alert the staff in the shop. Don't just walk by and pretend it's not your problem. It's all of our problems. And if that makes me a justice seeker, a bit of a vigilante, well, I think we all need to be like that, because otherwise this is how countries degenerate. It's the same with allowing people just to toss litter on the street and not, you know, challenge them about that. We've all got to play our part, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think that's very much part of what's gone wrong, particularly in the big cities where people just turn the other cheek and go, well, it's not my business, really. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. Isabel, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott Talks international editor there. Let's get a voice note from Wayne on chicken nuggets.
Good morning, Mike. Without getting you in too many legal issues with copyrights or whatever, it seems that this day and age a happy deal is done by just simply getting a McVisa. And, you know, if you have a family, well, you've always got the other option of the spineless family bucket deal, where it's, you know, up to 4 people. Insane, mate. What is this country coming to? Absolutely insane. Cheers, mate.
Absolutely ridiculous, isn't it, Wayne? Thank you very much indeed. One from Oxo, who says, is there any reason we can use to deport foreign criminals? It seems they use every trivial reason they can get away with to remain in the UK and be a drain on our taxpayers. It's disgusting. And one from Jess in Dover. Morning, Mike. I think there are 2 words applicable to the Labour WhatsApp thugs. They are far left. Absolutely right. It's 9:23. This is Morning Glory.
Let's try that again. Fix the foundation. Keir Starmer. Let me try that. OK, bear with me, I'll try it. Fix the foundation. By Jove, I think he's got it. He's got it. That is, so he was taught to speak like a nasally challenged dork. And anyway, he should get his money back. He still sounds terrible. Fix the foundation. My government. Anyway, time for a bird eye.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:27. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here. Joanna from Salisbury says, "Hi, Mike. The guy can't be deported because his son doesn't like chicken nuggets. I thought they were deporting him, not his son. Leave the child with his mother. He can still go." One from Ali, who says, "Did Tom Huddleston answer a single one of your questions? No. All he did was waffle, 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 which is all the Tories do these days. No policies, no idea, not Conservative, and not electable." Well, I think that is a problem for them, isn't it? The other problem is, of course, that I've just had a piece of information passed to me, I don't know if it's true, that there are indeed outlets where you can get chicken nuggets in Albania. Well, I think we know that, but I think the argument is that they're not as good. That's, I believe, what the criminal's son is basically saying. Also, the other news we've got for you is that Keir Starmer's had an HIV test, because apparently he wants to highlight the need to have one. And according to Sue in Eastbourne, she says, "Why is two-tier highlighting HIV? We have this controlled here and do not seem to have an epidemic in the UK." Well, there is that. And Joanna from Salisbury says, "Hi, Mike. Keir Starmer having an HIV test. I thought it was just voice coaching he had." Very true. Listen, you can't take too many precautions, can you? Suella Braverman has demanded an inquiry into a pro-Palestine group's protest request during the October the 7th massacre. This is a story that dates back to this weekend when it came out that an affiliated group of people affiliated with one of the current MPs in Parliament, believe it or not, actually asked for permission to protest on October the 7th. And the belief is that may have been knowledge that was passed to them by terrorists in Gaza, who basically said that this was what they were going to do. We don't know, that's for sure. The other problem we've got, of course, in terms of anti-Semitism, and we're going to speak now to Alex Hearn, who's Director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism, is the current scandal that's going on. The Health Minister had to basically be forced to have his membership of the party suspended and his ministership taken off him as a result of some anti-Semitic things that he said. Andrew Gwynn is his name, on a WhatsApp group. There's also Oliver Ryan, a 29-year-old MP, who was also involved in that. Let's talk to Alex Hearn about it all. Alex, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Not at all. I mean, this story about the request for the pro-Palestine march on October the 7th is a strange one, isn't it? Because am I right in saying the inference is that they sort of must have known that something was going to happen? Was it just a coincidence? What are they saying?
Yes, that's the implication behind it. What we saw, this Freedom of Information Act that came out that delivered this information was revealed as we saw pictures of Hamas's starving, emaciated hostages who were forced into this grotesque stage ceremony. So you had Eli Sharabi saying that he was happy to return to his wife and family, and Hamas knew that they had all been killed, including his family dog.
That was awful, wasn't it?
It's just awful. And at the moment that they were being killed, along with other families, the PSC, the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign, were posting justifications. The Manchester PSC called it heroic and brave. Now, at that point, in that morning, they applied for a rally. And the videos of that rally, I think you're showing them now, they showed that they were celebratory. So the question that needs to be asked is, who exactly was this solidarity for? Because the March of Solidarity wasn't for the victims of Hamas, and it wasn't for Palestinian people who went on to become human shields by Hamas in this subsequent war that they started. So there are lots of questions to answer. Previously, PSC key members met with Hamas. And then more recently, one of their patrons, Gardakami, announced, I want to pay tribute to Hamas.
Yeah.
And again, they wouldn't alter their march. They resisted altering their march to allow for synagogue goers to have freedom of worship without disruption. And these marches have been characterized by racism. So it's really shocking that this was allowed to happen given those circumstances, and that trade unions are affiliated to this group, and that MPs are supporting them and appearing at them.
Well, we often see Mick Lynch appearing at these events. We also saw Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell, who were actually arrested, I think, weren't they, the last time there was one, because they, again, refused to not go close to a synagogue where the police were actually, you know, urging them not to go, telling them it was illegal to go. You know, also, I think I'm right in saying that the first proper demo outside the Israeli embassy was the night of October 7th, before anything had really, any sort of attack had been launched on Gaza.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? Is that the marches were organised and occurred before there was a response by Israel.
Yeah.
So again, the question is, who were they in solidarity with?
Yeah.
And who are these people friends with? Why are they not banned? There are many MPs who show them support. They should all lose the whip.
Yeah. You would think so. I mean, also, there's a story that I've got in front of me here saying that one of the guys who ran the campaign group is chairman of Friends of Al-Aqsa, basically, and that was the demo that was organised outside the Israeli embassy. He's the brother of that pro-Palestinian MP, Shokat Adam, who won the Leicester South election. And it turns out that, according to this, he met with Hamas at some point or other to discuss all manner of different things. And I find it hard to believe as well. I mean, I remember we did a story last year sometime that there's a former Hamas leader living in a council house in Colindale in North London.
That's right, and he was behind the pro-Palestinian armistice rally. Now, Ismail Patel, who you're talking about, the Friends of Al-Aqsa chair, was filmed at a rally in 2009 saying Hamas is no terror organisation and we are all Hamas. Now he, like the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign previous key members, met with Hamas.
Right.
How are these people allowed to organise these takeover of the streets? They are not humanitarians.
No. It beggars belief, and when we saw last week, I think, the figure that it cost the police to police these marches, £53 million, I think it's cost since October of 2023. I mean, there are so many reasons not to allow them to go ahead. I mean, I've said many times that, you know, I'm not one who wants to suppress free speech, but, you know, if they want to have a rally somewhere, they can have a rally somewhere, but they can't have a march, which basically disrupts everything, and which is an excuse for them to menace people and to intimidate people.
Absolutely, and I think the police did a good job last time of isolating the march, so that Jews had freedom of worship, which is one of the basic things that we require in our society. I find it extraordinary that MPs are supporting the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign when they have run a campaign of intimidation against MPs and tried to shut down Parliament.
Right.
These are not a pro-democracy groups.
Yes, I know. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, there still is a problem, though, in some sections of left-wing politics. I mean, Richard Tice was here. You might not agree with much of what he says, but at the end of the day, he was saying, he was asking a question about the hostages the other day, and there was sort of, you know, murmurs and hisses coming from behind him from those Gaza supporting MPs who stood on a Gaza platform and all the rest of it, and even some people on Labour benches are not exactly, shall we say, whiter than white when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable for Jewish people, quite honestly. And then you have institutions and organisations, like I say, aligning, like the trade unions are affiliated with the PSC, and then you have, I don't know, the Red Cross joining in with the grotesque ceremony that Hamas ran with these emaciated hostages, which was so reminiscent of of the liberation of the camps. That's what we saw. You know, it sent a message deep into the psyche of Jewish people. We recoiled in such a deep way when we saw those images.
Of course. And the Red Cross, by the way, who have never been to visit any of the hostages in captivity.
No, exactly. Who basically did this whole stage-managed thing of signing a document, well, God knows what it was, and then basically acted as glorified Uber drivers to drive them in the short journey across the border. You know, we're talking about the same organisation who allowed Nazi crimes to be whitewashed as well.
Right.
So it kind of feels like a repetition. And then the UN, you know, some of the hostages were held in UNRWA facilities, and reportedly UNRWA members joined in with the massacre and shared energy facilities with Hamas.
Well, that was the question that Richard Tice asked in Parliament about, you know, the money that British taxpayers are giving to UNRWA, thanks to David Lammy, even though we know that they are linked to the terrorist attack on October the 7th, but also generally linked to Hamas.
The wife and children of Eli Sharabi, who were killed, who was made to make a speech, they were British citizens.
Yeah.
If they were held in UNRWA facilities, which some of the hostages were, or UNRWA members were involved in that, then doesn't that mean that the British government is funding indirectly Hamas activities?
Yeah, totally. Of course it does. I'm going to let you go in a sec, Alex. Let me just ask you about Andrew Gwynn, because, you know, he's part of what I would regard as the unacceptable face of the Labour Party. Luckily, everybody's not like him, but some of the things he wrote in that WhatsApp group were pretty disgusting, and I don't just mean the anti-Semitic bits, but I mean, it does show you that there's still people in the Labour Party, does it not, who have got this problem with Jewish people.
I think I heard the messages, and when I first heard them, my response was that they were childlike, almost very juvenile and unpleasant, and then some crossed the line, but much of the time it was just pathetic. It's his only response that I can really get out of this. He just seemed unpleasant and unkind. Some of it was about a prominent member of the Jewish community in America, and they were saying that he was a member of Mossad, which feeds into this trope, this anti-Semitic trope of Jews being disloyal and spies infiltrating society. So it did very much cross the line. Now, Andrew Gwynn flourished under Jeremy Corbyn, so you could say he was part of that toxic, failed project. Now, I'm sure the Labour Party and many people will argue that he was one bad apple, and you find those across society. And I don't think that this situation in itself is a long-term damaging situation. I think it'll be quickly forgotten, especially because it was dealt with swiftly and decisively, which is shows you how the party has changed. However, what I did find shocking was that it took so long to be revealed. How many people saw these comments?
Well, that's the problem. That's kind of what I'm getting at, I suppose. That there is.
Why did they take so long?
This unfortunate acceptance, shall we say, that people can say those kinds of things, and nobody complains about it.
Exactly. It's the silent bystanders who allow this kind of discourse, which really has no place in society. I mean, as I said, it was just juvenile and unpleasant and crossed into racism. And they clearly don't like many groups. That was the feeling that you got, how they othered and marginalised groups, from Jews to black people and the elderly and et cetera, et cetera. So you got the feeling that there was a sense of entitlement and privilege that these people felt, which really, as I said, has no place in society, let alone a party. So I'm glad it was dealt with.
Yeah, right. And it's not just a party, it's a party of government and a minister of government. But there we are. Alex, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Alex Hearn, Director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism. John says this: 9 pieces of British chicken, please, and can I have a free solicitor, a house and some money? Oh, and some benefits as well. And anything else going free in this wonderful country of ours. Yeah, thanks, John. We'll talk a bit about shoplifting in a moment. But first, some exciting news for our Talk listeners and viewers. It's competition time, and we're giving you a chance to win a whopping £25,000. So what do you need to do to get involved? All you have to do is text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post. It's as simple as that. Once again, to get involved, just text the word prize to 83338, or you can enter by post.
18 plus, UK excluding NI. Enter by SMS for £2 plus one standard network charge by 11 p.m. on March the 3rd, 2025. Or send your name, email and contact number to £25,000 cash competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on March the 6th, 2025. This is a News Broadcasting Network promotion. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Thank you very much indeed. Can't the government send this child a packet of nuggets every week? Then he has no excuse for not deporting them, says Ronald. Yeah, I'd probably be cheaper than keeping them here, to be honest. One from Darren in Twickenham. Morning, Mike. I saw a video of an 86-year-old throwing armed thugs out of a Coral betting shop in Cork over the weekend. Surely the Tesco security guard could handle a shoplifter. Here's a voice note from Tim.
Hey, Mike, great show as usual. Just listening to Isabel Oakeshott talking to you. Love that woman, always respect what she says, but she's got it wrong with shoplifting. We can't intervene. I'm not going to intervene with a shoplifter and then find myself being arrested because I've put a hand on him, her, etc., etc., or used the wrong pronouns, etc. The whole system needs changing. You can't expect us to intervene, the general public, when we're not respected.
It's a good point, Tim. I think what she meant was not necessarily intervene physically, but intervene in some way to draw attention to the fact that somebody shouldn't be able to come into a shop, be noticed stealing, but have nobody actually point out the fact that they are stealing. Because I think the more people feel uncomfortable doing something, the less they're going to do it. Rather than attacking them, I think it's more about recognising what they're doing and maybe making it a bit unpleasant for them. And maybe telling whether they do anything about it or not, the security staff. So this guy here is a thief. He's just been putting things in his pocket. I don't know what you would do if he then started attacking you. I don't know. But it's a problem. It's a massive problem. It's 9:42. We're going to talk NHS coming next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:45. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10, of course. 15 more minutes. Julie Hartley-Brew will be here. Looking out the window, it looks like a pretty grim day. I can barely see across the skyscrapers of London town. In fact, I can't see very much further than about a mile by the looks of it. Visibility not good. So probably another nasty week of nasty weather. I was a security guard for a well-known supermarket, says Nick, and we were explicitly told not to try and stop people from shoplifting as they don't want the liability if someone got injured. And then somebody who doesn't give a name says, you have to let a potential shoplifter leave the store if you want to prove they have no intention to pay. Only then can they be apprehended. Well, I suppose you could stop them on the way out, though, couldn't you, as they were about to cross the Rubicon of going out of the shop? I don't know. Ellie in Wales says this. Morning, Mike. I'm delighted to say I've been granted residency in Greece based on my application stating I can only enjoy a Greek meze in Greece. I just prefer it. Soon I'll be living there. Yeah, well, good luck with that. Let's talk about wokery in the NHS, because our favourite doctor is here, Dr. Dean Eggett from Doncaster's local medical committee, GP, of course, as well. Let's have a quick look at Wes Streeting, though, who's had a go at wokery in the NHS, says we have to get rid of it.
I also need the profession to help. And sometimes there are some really daft things being done in the name of equality, diversity and inclusion which undermine the cause. For example, there was one member of NHS staff who was merrily tweeting a job ad online and saying part of her practice was anti-whiteness. And I just thought, what the hell does that say to the bloke up in Wigan who's more likely to die earlier than his more affluent white counterparts down in London? We've got real issues of inequality that affect white working class people, particularly white working class men and boys.
I think diversity and equality, if it's improving health outcomes, not so people can pursue a political hobby horse.
The ideological hobby horses need to go. The whole point about, and what's been lost, I think, with some well-meaning but misguided approaches to equality, diversity, inclusion, the clue is in the name. It's equality. It should be applicable to everyone. And where we see health inequalities, whether they affect men and women, black people, white people, rich, we've got to take a much more evidence-based approach to those inequalities.
Is that the BBC's Nick Robinson there? Did a bit of moonlighting, I wonder. I wonder if he was paid for that or whether he donated it all to the Macmillan Cancer Charity. I'm sure we'll be told at some point by the BBC. Dr. Dean Eggett is here, though. Dr. Dean, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. How woke is your practice? Do you have to kind of treat people with those ridiculous rules that some hospitals have got? For example, James Whale tells me whenever he goes for his cancer treatment, it's become a kind of laughing thing now that the nurses always ask him if he's pregnant.
Yeah, you have to take some of this with a pinch of salt, don't you? The NHS, in its very core, has to be woke by the very definition, because being woke really is just about being aware of other people's needs. So yes, the NHS is going to be woke, but then yeah, and that's the key point, isn't it? Because there's a line that you can cross, and woke has become this political ideology of pushing other people's agendas rather than being aware of people's needs. So yes, the NHS needs to be aware of needs, yes, the NHS needs to address needs, but not to the point of pushing other people's ideological agendas, which then discriminates against groups of people. And Wes was entirely right. Actually, we do have an issue here in the UK of white working class young men who are struggling to get on in life, because ironically at the moment they're the ones that are being discriminated against the most in some areas of the UK.
Yeah, well, I mean, you might say lots of people have been discriminated against because they either can't get a doctor's appointment, or they can't get onto a waiting list, or they get onto a waiting list and they can't actually get the treatment that they want. I mean, that is discrimination against patients, isn't it? All of them.
It is, yeah, and again, by its very nature, the NHS has to be discriminatory, because we can't provide a gold standard NHS because we don't have gold standard resources. Actually, what we're aspiring to is a gold standard NHS on a faded bronze budget. So we can't deliver everything to everybody. We have to say, well, actually, we're going to cap it for you and not for you, because this is the area that we need to pursue. And I think that's where we've missed it in the NHS, because we're trying to do everything for everybody, and that's just not possible.
Right. So, I mean, in your own situation, in your own GP surgery there, are there any things that you do that you don't think you should do, that you're made to do?
I don't necessarily think there's anything that we're made to do in particular in general practice, because one of the things about general practice is that most of us are actually self-employed. So we have self-determination. We can work in certain ways that are best for our populations. Yes, we have to do courses in equality, diversity and inclusion and that sort of stuff.
But that takes you away from... But doesn't that take people away from the business of treating patients?
It does, but there's huge amounts of education that goes on in general practice that takes us away from patients. And I've famously said on this programme before that it's difficult for GPs to work more than 3 days. And that's because a lot of the work that we do is actually... I still am. I'm going to keep bragging on that one because a lot of the work that we do is actually away from patients. It's not face to face.
Yeah, but
perhaps, Mike, if it's okay with.
But if that was in some way to augment your service, that would be fine. But if it's to just be told, you know, for example, like the people who have just featured and brought out a new Visit Britain guide, which is inclusive, which tells staff to avoid negative language that perpetuates harmful stereotypes, for example, when discussing the needs of disabled people, I don't think that's a worthwhile use of your time.
I'm inclined to agree, and I have to point out that I don't think currently we in general practice have training that forces us down that line and takes us away from patients. But Mike, if it's okay, I'm going to give you one example that has happened to me in the past few years that I think exemplifies this point. As we moved away from one commissioning organisation called a CCG to an ICB, in my area, I applied to be the local GP partner to help our commissioners work with general practice so that we can work together for the best of patients. And I have to be honest, I'm going to be slightly arrogant here. I'm very well qualified for that role. You know, I have a master's degree in global health policy. I'm a fellow of the Royal College of GPs. I've been a GP for a very long time and I've worked at a national level. And I was declined that post. And I had 2 phone calls to tell me why. And essentially it boiled down to, and I quote, the senior NHS leadership in the area is too white and we need somebody who's more diverse than you.
Yeah, see, that's wrong, isn't it? It's completely wrong. It's mad. You know, they shouldn't care what colour you are or what sex you are or, you know, what you do when you're in your own private bedroom. That's got nothing to do with them. Let me ask you what the rest of your day looks like, Dr. Dean. What are you going to be doing today?
So you'll see I'm in scrubs. So I've got patients face-to-face this morning. I'll be doing minor surgery a little bit later. I'll be doing some home visits. My day is basically sat with patients. And I started at 7 o'clock today and I'll finish around 6 o'clock.
And how many will you see, do you reckon?
Well, probably somewhere between 30 and 40.
Wow. That's quite a busy day. I'll let you off on this occasion. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Dr. Dean Eggett there. He's going to see 30 to 40 patients today. Well, that's an average day for a doctor, right? So, you know, they get paid well. They you know, pay a lot of tax, as it should be. Aubrey from Upminster says on the front, on the chicken nuggets front, let them eat goujons. And one here from Debbie who says, good morning, the chicken nugget legal team should be ashamed of themselves. Absolutely right. And talking about Right Honourable MPs, Sue says, when I was a little child, I used to think they were called the Right Horrible MP. Great show. Thank you very much indeed. Coming up next, Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here in a moment. We'll keep your voice notes coming and we might give you another little special insight into what people do on dating apps. Apparently they tell lies. It's very Rachel Reeves of them. This is Talk.
Government borrowing costs hit a 27-year high, and the pound is taking a pounding. Gloomy economic data is expected to show inflation and growth are off course.
Let me ask again, and can you please be clear? Will Rachel Reeves be your Chancellor for the duration of this parliament?
Rachel Reeves is doing a fantastic job. She has my full confidence. She has the full confidence of the entire party.
Can Rachel Reeves hold on as Chancellor?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:57, very nearly, and Julie Hartley-Brewer is here. Very good morning.
Happy Monday morning.
Happy Monday to you. These WhatsApp stories.
Yeah.
Police, says Nick, police officers have been prosecuted over WhatsApp posts. Well, they have. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm always in two minds on this. I mean, look,
I am.
We don't want anyone to see our WhatsApps, do we?
Not particularly.
But here's the thing, we're mostly being horrid to each other.
Although the government would like to.
Anyone else.
I mean, it's kind of ironic that only at the end of last week, Keir Starmer was saying, we want to get Apple to let us have a look at them.
Yeah, as a general rule, I think people's private messages and we have a right to privacy. But if you're an MP and you're claiming to be Mr. Andrew Gwynn and this other MP, exactly the sort of people who would be calling for other people to live by the sword, die by the sword.
And I think so.
And if you are genuinely making it about wishing a pensioner dies,
right,
when she's written a perfectly polite letter about asking for her bins to be collected,
yes,
I think that tells something about who you are.
It does.
So there's no way he can be in government.
And no, I don't think so. And I was speaking to the Labour anti-Semitism guy just a minute ago, Alex Hearn, and he said, you know what, it was all rather pathetic and kind of juvenile, which it was.
It's a very Jewish name. Is he in Mossad?
Yeah.
The messages. Really?
I mean, yeah.
Really?
You certainly shouldn't be in government if that's how you think, and I don't think you should be an MP. Actually, I think you should be kicked out.
I think that's absolutely going to be up to his constituents. But I think we've got a taste of the man. I'm all in favour. I think people should be allowed to make nasty jokes and bad jokes.
Yeah.
I think you can joke about it. I will accept that. I just think this does kind of go over the line.
But again, people make the mistake down there about free speech. It doesn't. You can say it, but it doesn't mean there won't be consequences.
But especially if you are a hypocrite.
And also if you have a job which would suggest that you shouldn't make those kind of jokes. Yeah. I mean, like if you're the Pope, for example, you wouldn't expect the Pope to come out and start,
I mean, I would.
having a massive.
I would.
Well,
but anyway, no, but that's the thing.
It
a
would
lot
be
of people
funny
will say,
if you did.
but a lot of people say, what WhatsApps matter. Well, it's an indicative of your attitude to people. And again, and the way they would just write everyone. We're all written off as being right-wing bigots and everything for complaining about anything.
The nasty party and all that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We can't have it both ways. And we're also going to be talking, I know you have this morning about, the blitz on, the crackdown on illegal migrants when they can't deport an Albanian because apparently his son doesn't like foreign chicken nuggets.
I didn't